When long ago a demonic tower shot up from the earth, signaling the end of humanity itself, forcing survivors to awaken supernatural powers to fight the beasts pouring from the gates. Generations came and went, heroes fell, and new warriors stepped up to take their place, until finally, a true legend was born, blessed with absolute genius, intellect, and unmatched luck. He fought his way to the very top of the tower. The strongest warrior alive, the ultimate hope to end this nightmare. They called him the Light of Humanity, and his name is Ling Xiao. This was his third regression, and this time, he had maxed out every single attribute and skill. On top of that, he secured the absolute best gear in existence. His system screens promised that conquering this final floor of the demonic tower would end the apocalypse, a feat he only managed to reach thanks to those constant system notifications over the years. But this time, he could not find a single detail about the creatures on the highest floor, and even his trusty system failed to give a clear answer. Seeing him space out, the hunter points out that their leader is daydreaming again, prompting the priest to laugh and tease that he is probably thinking about a girl. Overhearing the banter, Ling Xiao quickly explains that he was actually wondering what life holds after they finally put down the Demon King. The priest chuckles, calling it a cheap excuse, though the hunter thinks it is a beautiful sentiment fitting of their grand commander. This sort of distraction happened every time Ling Xiao checked his private interface screen, but there was nothing he could do to avoid the teasing. He was the only one who could see it, forcing him to come up with silly cover stories. Nearby, the enchantress looks eager to finally witness the peak of the demonic tower. Looking around, the priest doubts whether this elegant hall is actually the final floor. The knight then notes that it feels too empty, questioning if the Demon King is even guarding this quiet sanctuary. The hunter admits he cannot even picture what the Demon Lord will look like. The enchantress points out that this bright, luxurious space is completely different from the grim, blood-soaked atmosphere of the lower levels. Hearing this, Ling Xiao cautions them that looks can be highly deceiving. After all, angels look terrifying to frighten demons, while demons present themselves as incredibly beautiful creatures to make their enemies drop their defenses. So no matter how stunning this hall looks, they cannot afford a single mistake. The rest of the squad nods, promising their commander to stay sharp. Honestly, this is the first time Ling Xiao has ever set foot here across 3 lifetimes, so he is stepping into the complete unknown. Still, the priest reminds everyone that they only reached this height because of their leader's flawless command. The knight completely agrees, noting how their commander anticipated every single trap and demonic ambush on the way up, knowing their enemies like the back of his own hand. The hunter declares that they are now just one final fight away from victory, and the survival of all humanity rests squarely on their shoulders. The enchantress steps close to Ling Xiao, calling out to him gently. With a bright smile, she promises that they will win this together. A soft smile is quickly cut short as fresh blood suddenly splatters right in front of Ling Xiao. Every single ally who climbed to this final tower floor with him is slaughtered in a heartbeat. Now the killer casually greets him. A chilling greeting echoes. Only now does Ling Xiao feel the terrifying shadow behind him, sending cold shivers down his spine. Drawing his blade, he demands to know what kind of monster he is facing. Is it a demon? He had not even sensed its approach, gathering every ounce of strength. Ling Xiao strikes with a heavy slash, but the monster blocks it using bare skin. The beast laughs. It is indeed a fine blade, but far too fragile. Ling Xiao freezes in disbelief. Is this some kind of sick joke? The legendary blade, the absolute strongest weapon in the world, shattered instantly. Broken with a single finger, Ling Xiao desperately asks who he is. But a cold voice whispers in his ear, "You are looking the wrong way." With a careless backhand, the monster slams Ling Xiao deep into the stone wall. Battered and broken, he collapses to the ground, coughing up blood in agonizing pain. A terrifying realization hits him. This entity is the legendary Demon King. But it makes no sense. How can a high demon possess a human form? The entity replies that he is the physical shape of mankind's absolute darkest nightmares, manifested directly into human flesh. In a panic, Ling Xiao activates his ultimate skill, the max-level Eye of Truth, trying to read this monster's hidden stats. The status screen leaves him completely speechless. Perfect, untouched health. Even after landing his absolute strongest blow, he did 0 damage. It is completely impossible. Then he spots the passive skill. Guys, this is where things get really bad. It is called unlimited survivability, grants him constant, unconditional, infinite health and mana. What does that bizarre symbol even mean? Does the Demon King actually possess a bottomless pool of magical energy? If so, he is utterly invincible. Suddenly, the system blares a frantic alarm, warning that the gap is too vast, showing an absolute 0% chance of winning. Immediately, the system begins calculating the best route to escape. Never before has his helper warned him with such terrifying urgency. This is a stark reminder that he stands zero chance of survival here. Ling Xiao tries to calm his racing mind, desperately searching for a way out. But his time is up as the Demon King slowly makes a move. He reaches his hand outward, but instead of striking the hero, he grabs the holographic system interface in a flash. He crushes the interface into tiny glass splinters, the Demon King size, calling it invisible trash and asking if this petty thing was his guide all along. Was it the map that showed him where all those legendary treasures were hidden? He admits he has no idea what it actually is, but regardless, it will not help him anymore. Ling Xiao screams in pure horror, demanding to know what the beast just did to his precious system. But the beast mocks him, not seeing it did not stop him from crushing it. After all, he is invincible. Ling Xiao realizes this is the end. He has absolutely no strength left to fight back. He will die here. Though he has died before, this time, the sheer terror is on another level. More than ever before, he cannot even picture a scenario where he wins. Could he defeat the Demon King? Ling Xiao refuses to just roll over. He cannot end like this. Even if death takes him, he fights. He must give everything. There is always a way out of darkness. Humanity still has hope. Next time, they will definitely make it through. They will succeed, but suddenly, Ling Xiao feels something incredibly strange. His wounds are healed. Why would a Demon King ever do this? Warm energy floods his body, repairing every broken bone in seconds. It feels like ultimate recovery magic, an almost impossible surge of life. The torrent of power is absolutely endless, knitting his broken body back together completely. Suddenly, the Demon King hoists him up, leaving the hero utterly speechless. Why heal him? The Demon King asks if he is a regressor. He watched him clear the lower floors with almost impossible battle skills. His perfect moves and counters suggest he has the foresight of a powerful prophet. But a simple prophet would not have reacted with such genuine, terrified shock. No, there is only one logical explanation left. He is a regressor. He has looped through time. Is this his second attempt or maybe his third? If he dies here, he will just wake up in the past and plan again. He will restart the endless loop over and over, refining his strategy each time. Eventually, he would find a weak point and bring the Demon King down. The sudden panic on Ling Xiao's face confirms the Demon King's wild theory. A chilling laugh, the hero begins to visibly tremble in absolute dread. With a sharp snap of his fingers, a choking darkness swallows Ling Xiao. The monster agrees that the hero brought the finest gear imaginable. Legendary armor so remarkably tough that absolutely nobody else could ever break it. It is the ultimate prize for someone who has lived through 3 lifetimes. He gathered incredible treasures, but now Ling Xiao is completely frozen in fear. His mind spins, trying to comprehend how his master plan fell apart. The Demon King smiles, explaining that the hero will never be allowed to die. Continuous healing will keep him alive, while his own armor becomes a prison. He will be bound forever, completely unable to move or escape his fate. Trapped in a living hell with no way to die, talk about a terrifying nightmare. The Demon King reshapes Ling Xiao's sealed body, turning him into a throne. He drags the new seat to the center of the room and sits down. The annoying hero and his pathetic little party are finally out of the way. He casually channels his dark energy toward the cold bodies scattered nearby. Everyone wants to believe they are the main character of their own story. But how do we actually decide who gets to wear that title? No prophet can tell you, only those who write the history books. Because in the end, the sole survivor is the one who claims the spotlight. Why? Simple, he is the absolute strongest boss in existence. Soon, news of the tragic demise of Ling Xiao and his party spreads. They perished on the very top floor, just a single step from total victory. After so many wins, the public fully expected a miracle. Now the awakened association can only offer their hollow, bitter condolences. Condolences while begging the survivors not to lose hope. They need fighters who can still fight to keep challenging the demon tower, holding back the endless tide of demonic beasts. This desperate plea comes even though the people have no idea how long this nightmare will last or when it will finally end. Meanwhile, looking at the strange anomaly nearby, Tiantin asks Bing Fong if this is a hidden S-rank dungeon. These dungeons are the precise points where the tower connects to human territory. They can manifest literally anywhere in the city, and that is exactly how those vile beasts break directly into our world, immediately starting to tear entire neighborhoods apart. Cleanup duty falls on the Awakened Association, whose main job is exploring these dimensional tiers. Because of this, association members spend most of their days clearing out monsters, hunting for valuable loot, and securing the surrounding areas. Stepping through the portal, Tiantin and Bing Fong step into a completely different world far outside the city bounds, the S-rank dungeon. Tiantin asks Bing Fong if he is absolutely certain the blood spike is hidden here, the very weapon they need to bring down the Demon King. The blood spike is a law-based relic, and its absolute rule guarantees dealing at least 1 unit of damage with every single strike. Smiling, Bing Fong reminds Tiantin that righteousness always triumphs over darkness, and she should know that. Blushing, Tiantin apologizes for her doubts, telling him she has complete faith. Bing Fong might be a total prodigy, but he is still pretty young and needs a few more years of hard training before he can finally surpass Ling Xiao. Still, Bing Fong is her ultimate idol, meaning she will back him up no matter what. Suddenly, both Tiantin and Bing Fong freeze, noticing a mysterious figure who just slaughtered the local boss. Tiantin whispers, wondering if this stranger already stole the blood spike. The intruder smiles. The Demon King himself knew there would be clever humans attempting to assassinate the Demon King using powerful, law-based weapons. That is why he showed up early, to force these weaklings to hand over the blood spike. Unaware, Bing Fong politely compliments the stranger for slaying the beast and securing the relic, then casually asks if he can have it. The Demon King laughs, mockingly pointing out that Bing Fong does not even know who he is talking to, yet has the nerve to demand it. Bing Fong replies that this is to save all of humanity, so calling it robbery is pretty unfair. He confidently introduces himself as Bing Fong, assuming the name alone commands respect. He argues that the sacred artifact belongs in his capable hands, specifically to destroy the Demon King, all in the holy name of justice. Instantly, the stranger's eyes flash with murderous intent, and a dense surge of magic gathers. Bing Fong is caught off guard, but his reflexes kick in immediately as he activates absolute protection at the very last second, shielding himself from the devastating, sudden blast. Absolute protection is another powerful law-based item. Its rule is simple. Within a radius of 2 meters, it generates an unbreakable barrier, defending one person from any incoming blow, no matter how powerful. Safe behind his shield, Bing Fong trembles, shocked by such ridiculous destructive power. Could this monster in front of him actually be the Demon King himself? In the chaos, Qingfang realized he had missed a crucial detail. It was too late anyway. The Demon King already had Tiantin in his grasp. Upon hearing the name by Qingfang, the Demon King asked if he was Ling Xiao's successor. He offered a trade. He would let Tiantin go, but only on one condition. Bai Qingfang had to deactivate his magic cube first. The Dark Lord promised to keep his word, and if the hero doubted him, he could test it. Without letting him finish, Qingfang yelled to Tiantin not to be afraid. She would die for humanity's glory, and he promised to build a grand monument in her honor. Instantly, the hero launched a fierce strike, but the Demon King easily dodged it. The enemy was shocked that Qingfang did not hesitate for a single second to sacrifice her. It proved that his understanding of human nature was still far from perfect. But Qingfang coldly retorted that true heroes must always walk alone. Sacrifices are inevitable for the greater good. Besides, the Demon King was the root cause of all human suffering in this world. The Demon King merely smiled, replying that some people think otherwise. Tears streaming down her face, Tiantin asked why he had become so heartless. She had stayed loyal to him and followed his path for so many long years. Yet, despite his cold betrayal, she screamed for him to stop worrying about her. She begged him to just use the magic cube and escape right now. But Qingfang had absolutely no intention of running, claiming he was blessed by the heavens themselves. As the new hope of mankind, how could he possibly flee like a coward? Justice always wins because of chosen ones with his relentless will to win. No matter the cost, he would fight on for the future of the entire world. Talk about a massive hero complex. He is doing this for the entire world. Hearing this nonsense, the Demon King just laughed. He mockingly asked if this self-proclaimed hero was really going to stand his ground. Because if that was the case, he was choosing his own death. Suddenly, heavy demonic energy swirled around Bai Qingfang, trapping him completely. Before he could even react, the ground beneath his feet shattered. Qingfang plunged downward, unable to comprehend how he had actually lost. He wondered in despair if this was truly the tragic end of his glorious journey. Watching him plunge into the dark abyss, the Demon King taunted him with freezing words. He sneered that a righteous knight of justice should have accepted his sacrifice long ago. The Demon Lord hoped the self-proclaimed hero found this ending grand enough. But Qingfang did not feel heroic at all right now. He screamed in absolute terror, shouting desperately that he could not die in this place. The falling hero refused to be a sacrifice and absolutely hated ending up like this. Plunging into the dark void, he begged the Demon King for mercy. But his desperate pleas fell on deaf ears as the Dark Lord calmly turned away. With Qingfang gone, Tiantan braced herself, knowing she would be next. But to her utter surprise, the Dark Lord was in no rush to take her life. On the contrary, the Dark Ruler was simply preparing to turn around and walk away. Completely confused, Tiantan asked if he was actually letting her live. The Demon King calmly reminded her that he always keeps his promises. Letting her leave, after all, the Demon King had promised to set her free. He agreed to go, but only if Bakingong dispelled his cube first. The man always keeps his word, but felt sorry that Qingfang had to stay behind. She could never leave. Still, the Demon King bid the little girl a final farewell. He warned her that next time they met, he would absolutely end her life. Even with the Demon King gone, Tanshan struggled to believe she was actually free. He had really let her go. Meanwhile, back in this human world, a black-haired youth walked right out of the dungeon, immediately blending into the massive crowd of people. He made his way toward the headquarters of the Awakened Association, waiting silently. A secretary there politely asked him if he truly wanted to join them. Suddenly, another guild secretary popped up right in front of them with excitement. Her eyes sparkled as she mentioned how incredibly cool it was, especially lately. Monsters have been growing massive, even managed to break out into the city streets. Because of this, they are welcoming any strong awakened hunter to sign up immediately. She was especially eager to recruit good-looking guys, asking for his name and level. She offered to help him register, but the young man smugly smiled. He proudly declared himself as the genius Bingfang, assuming they already knew him. He added that he was absolutely thrilled to join the Awakened Association today. Meanwhile, deep inside the association, the 7 elders gathered for a meeting. One elder somberly pointed out that only 6 of them remained around the table. He never expected that someone as powerful as Ling Xiao would actually fall. Despite his incredible regression abilities, the demonic tower had completely defeated him. The association president chimed in, urging the remaining elders to listen closely. He explained that as long as the Demon King remained inside his tower, he was invincible. He possessed infinite life and limitless mana, making brute force attacks a suicide mission. They could not keep throwing their greatest heroes into that meat grinder. A new plan was crucial, and he had already ordered them to stop raiding. Instead of fighting, they had to search for an artifact capable of sealing the tower. They needed to stop dungeons from ever spawning inside their cities again. Only then could they truly guarantee the safety of the innocent people. Just then, a female elder interrupted with some shocking, yet hopeful news. She had successfully summoned a chosen hero from a parallel world to save them. They would refer to him as the Traveler from Earth, keeping his identity classified. Even the boy had no idea he was brought here to save this world. Still, these interdimensional travelers always seemed to get the job done. Currently, his soul was residing inside the body of Linfen, Ling Xiao's brother. Ever since his arrival, he had been acting surprisingly cautious and sharp. He seemed to see right through the hidden chaos of this world. Right now, he was leading a small, elite squad deep into the dungeons. They were actively searching for the key artifact to seal that tower. An old seer interrupted the meeting, taking a long swig from his flask. He revealed that during the last full moon, he had cast a prediction. The prophecy clearly stated that Linfen would successfully locate the artifact. Grinning from ear to ear, the old seer told them there was no need to worry. He assured everyone that this entire nightmare would be coming to an end soon. Right after the meeting adjourned, a young staff member anxiously questioned his prediction. Did this mean the Demon Tower would finally be sealed soon? After all, this was just fine since humanity would finally be saved. The old seer approached the young lady, sharply startling her, and asked if she had really thought this through. After all, what if the Demon King was not inside the tower during the sealing but was actually wandering among them? Would sealing the tower actually do any good at all? The girl had to admit that such an outcome was indeed possible and asked what they would do. Suddenly, the old prophet took the opportunity to pat her on the backside while saying that he would take care of everything. The old seer then admitted he was just joking and laughed out loud. He then asked if a demon king could even leave his tower. Besides, if he did, he would immediately lose his dark blessing, leaving him on par with their strongest awakened warriors. If the public found out, they would do whatever it took to slay the demon king in no time. This left him with only two choices: either stay in the tower and be sealed with his minions, or leave and immediately get hunted down by a horde of humans. Humans had basically won already. All that remained was waiting for Lin Feng to find the artifact, exactly as his vision foretold, as expected of Lin Feng, the chosen one from a parallel world. The old seer chuckled as he boasted that Lin Feng would secure the item by tonight, wanting to escape the old creep as fast as possible. The girl excused herself, saying she still had urgent chores to attend to. The old seer grumbled about how modern girls behaved, then realized the scheduled time for Lin Feng was close. But as he opened the door to his chamber, the old prophet froze. He demanded to know who the intruder was and what he wanted. The black-haired youth glanced back, glad the old man had finally arrived. He warmly greeted the seer and introduced himself as Ba King Feng, explaining that he had recently joined their secret organization. The old prophet grumbled that the boy had scared him half to death, but admitted he had heard of Ba King Feng, their brilliant new hidden genius. Ba King Feng modestly downplayed the compliment, promising to support him until they finally defeated the Demon King. Wandering over to his chair, the old seer grumbled about how overly formal young people were nowadays, telling King Feng to take a seat and drop the polite act. King Feng then mentioned he had heard rumors that of the 7 elders, only this old man could predict the future. The prophet proudly confirmed it, but complained that he was getting far too old. King Feng confessed he had joined their ranks specifically for that power. He wanted to glimpse the fate of the Demon King. The prophet chuckled, warning the boy that he was being incredibly naive. If predicting the Demon King's future were that simple, he would be humanity's savior, not Ling Xiao. The trick is his prophetic visions only trigger under a clear full moon, and only with direct physical contact. Hearing this, King Feng smirked and asked the prophet if tonight was not a full moon. Snatching the old man's neck, the startled seer gasped, asking if the boy was completely insane or just reckless. He tried to remind him that physical contact with the target was still required. Can never touch the Demon King. He completely lacks combat skills, which is the exact reason why he cannot enter the Demon Tower. Plus, he can never just ask the Demon King to deliver a prophecy. Suddenly, in a shocking twist, everything goes completely sideways. Ba King Feng grabs him by the throat. The helpless old seer instantly panics. "Release me," he gasps out, realizing this terrifying monster is definitely not Bingong. In truth, standing right there is the Demon King himself, trapped and totally helpless. The seer uses his ultimate trump card, the great art of prediction triggers. Next winter, that is when humanity will finally crush the Demon King. Meanwhile, the Demon King uses mind reading. He instantly steals the shocking prophecy. Squeezing the prophet's throat even tighter, the vicious overlord demands a simple answer. Is it true? Yes, the prophet wheezes, but a second later he panics. No, not accurate. He desperately switches his answer, begging for his life. He can say whatever the Dark Lord desires. He just needs a single chance. He promises to be incredibly useful, but the Demon King demands a test. Tell me my own future. Will I die today or will I live? Classic setup. It is a pretty typical story about soul transmigration. A random guy takes over the body of a total society loser. He becomes an overpowered hero, playing it cool and crushing arrogant fools. Absolute trash defeats the Demon King, a total underdog story, that is. the exact rock-bottom character he was reading about on his usual morning commute. Then bam, a sudden car accident ends his life, just like that. The perfect cliché prologue. Now, he is the one who gets transmigrated. Reborn inside the novel, he occupies the body of a supporting character. Specifically, the second son of the powerful Lin family, humanity's ultimate hope. Ling Xiao, but wait, he actually shifted into the useless younger brother Linfeng, a lazy hedonist, a minor villain destined for absolute ruin. He always lived in his older brother's massive shadow, but things change. Linfeng tells his father he knows the map location for the legendary sealing artifact. All he needs now is a strong squad to get his hands on it. Having read the entire novel, he knows every single plot detail. With this absolute omniscient knowledge, he easily locates the map pointing to the ancient relic that seals the tower. Checkmate, the legendary item is practically his. Next, inside the Grand Awakened Association headquarters, Linfeng smiles, though his genius older brother is dead. The real protagonist of this story has not appeared yet. That means his time is now. He will become the world's savior. Linfeng turns to Xiaoya, promising they will secure the relic. She is a breathtaking, ice-cold beauty. In his previous life, he could only dream of getting close to someone so incredibly gorgeous. He laughs internally, because in this world, Xiaoya is his fiancée. Right then, a panicked girl rushes toward him, terrified, trembling. She looks like a helpless little rabbit, begging him to protect her. Linfeng gently pats Tintin, telling her she is completely safe here. Confused but deeply grateful, Tintin softly thanks Brother Linfeng, for his kind concern. But right after this weird guy stepped forward with a smug face, Linfeng felt surprisingly comfortable around her. He also knew this beauty had nothing but fluff in her head. Linfeng clenched his fist with deep satisfaction. Transmigration was basically a cheat code. Leaving the group to head out, Linfeng announced he had to take care of some personal matters and requested his allies to manage everything else. Tyne asked her brother where he was going. He said he wanted to visit the Great Prophet for an urgent discussion, since he was the hero destined to seal the demonic tower. Did he really have time to chase after girls? Xiaoya greeted the secretary, stating they had a private matter to discuss. She wanted to recommend a potential recruit to join their association. The secretary asked for a name, and Xiaoya grabbed Tian's arm, pulling her forward. They had rescued her alongside Linfeng during the last dungeon raid. Xiaoya then revealed that Tian was the sole survivor of a deadly clash with the demon king, completely stunning the secretary. Tian assumed the secretary already knew about Bangfang, the hidden genius, and proudly claimed to be his follower. She explained they had run into the demon king while crossing a dungeon where their master was slain, though she somehow managed to escape. Later on, she met Linfeng and Lady Xiaoya, joining their team. The secretary listened in absolute shock to Tian's wild story and revealed that Bangfang was actually alive and well at this very moment. Tian was confused, asking for clarification, and was told that Bangfang was actually here recently and had headed to the Great Prophet's quarters. Tian and Xiaoya were stunned he was alive, but only Tyne understood the dark truth. Meanwhile, the Demon King confronted the old prophet. The old man begged the Demon King for mercy. The Demon King asked if he had foreseen this fate, but the prophet only cried out, promising to obey his every command. Whatever orders he gave, he would perform them. The Demon King scoffed and asked if that was truly all he had to say before complaining about how boring the prophet truly was, adding that he used to believe all humans possess the courage, justice, and strength of Ling Xiao. But clearly he had not yet fully understood his enemies. He needed to learn even more about his enemies, yet seeing cowards like this prophet among the humans, any lingering worry in his heart quickly vanished. In twisted gratitude, he promised to end the prophet's life quickly. Hearing this, the prophet begged one last time for his life before falling silent forever. After killing the elder, the Demon King quietly slipped out of the silent room. Once he returns to the demonic tower, Linfeng would surely secure the sealing artifact and trap him. But if he dared to oppose Linfeng now, he might not only fail but end up slain by the hero, just as the prophecy foretold. King wondered what his next move should be. Escaping the tower was far too risky now that he knew the warnings of the prophecy, leaving him cornered. He figured it would be best to head back to the tower, hoping that maybe he could still change the prophecy one day. While walking, Baking remembered. An emergency exit should be hidden somewhere around this area. Suddenly, a stranger grabbed him by the shoulder, demanding to know who he was. After all, the guy had never seen him here before, making the Demon King panic. Caught so soon, Baking quickly lied, claiming he was just a newly awakened rookie who recently joined the association, then asked what the man wanted. Lin Feng looked surprised at his words and was ready to reply to Baking, but stopped himself, pointing out that only those who reached S rank could wear a prestigious chest badge like that. In response, Baking asked the stranger if he was actually that powerful. Lin Feng immediately asked the S ranker to join his squad, explaining they were currently searching for an item to seal the Demon Tower. He then proudly introduced himself as Lin Feng. He figured the rookie had never heard of him, but promised he would soon become world famous. Hearing that this guy was named Lin Feng, Baking suddenly smiled and accepted the offer. The Demon King wanted to see if the Great Prophet's prediction would actually come true. Soon, Lin Feng and Baking set off to find the Great Prophet. Lin Feng bragged to the newcomer that he was incredibly lucky to meet a top leader like him. Soon, the entire world would only talk about them. Lin Feng added that if Baking followed his orders obediently and kept his eyes open, he would be fine. He told Baking not to worry, since he never mistreated his comrades. Then Lin Feng suddenly remembered how during his last mission, he had managed to rescue a gorgeous girl who happened to be Baking's former partner. She had claimed to be the sole survivor of a terrifying clash with the Demon King. Intrigued, Baking decided to ask about this mysterious survivor. Lin Feng happily told him that her name was Tian Tian, and she was now a key member of his squad. Lin Feng promised he would introduce them very soon. Hearing that name, the Demon King tried to quietly slip away, but Lin Feng noticed and asked where the newcomer was heading. Baking quickly made up a ridiculous excuse, stammering that he had just remembered a pig back in his village was about to give birth, and he had to rush back for postpartum care. Honestly, can you blame him? Lin Feng was utterly baffled, wondering what kind of pig needed that kind of care. But right then, some teammates called out Lin Feng's name. It was Tian Tian, walking over alongside Li, both trying to get their captain's attention. Lin Feng waved them over, then leaned in and whispered to Baking that being constantly surrounded by beautiful girls was honestly getting pretty exhausting. However, he had no choice, since they simply adored being around him. As she drew near, Tian Tian realized exactly who was talking to their captain and was just about to call him out. The Demon King's heart sank, because this was literally his worst nightmare scenario. But just as Baking was bracing himself to say hello, Tian Tian suddenly threw her arms around him, crying out how overjoyed she was when she heard he survived and managed to escape from the Demon King. Demon King, it finally clicked for Lin Feng that this guy was none other than Bai King Feng. But according to the novel's original plot, this man should already be dead. Feeling a bit shy, Tianchen tells Bai King Feng that he has no idea how terribly she worried about him and how she couldn't stop thinking about seeing him again. Meanwhile, the Demon King is completely baffled by this. He thought Tianchen already knew he was the true Demon King. Instead, Tianchen looks right at Bai King Feng and says she is incredibly grateful to him for saving her from that scary Demon King back then. Now she insists that she must absolutely repay him for his kindness. She even promises to follow him from this day forward, no matter what. She has always admired the strong, and she always pays her debts. Hearing her praise the Demon King and demand to repay him, things finally click. The Demon King finally understands the hilarious misunderstanding that is playing out here. It is his first time meeting someone who actually wants to follow him. Intrigued, Bai King Feng praises Tianchen's cleverness and tells her not to be afraid, promising he will treat her exceptionally well. Lin Feng interrupts, asking who is following whom and demanding if they forgot that he is still the group leader. Hearing this is the famous Bai King Feng, Li smiles and says she has heard of him. She adds how happy she is to meet him, making Lin Feng turn to Lei in frustration. He tries to remind her she is his fiancée, but she cuts him off. Li asks Bai King Feng what the Demon King was like when they met. Bai King Feng casually replies that the guy just looked like a generic villain. At the exact same time, Tianchen chimes in that he was fierce and terrifying. The three of them laugh it off, making a vain pop-on Lin Feng's face, because this annoying brat is pushing him to his limit. According to the novel, Bai Qingfeng was supposed to die by the Demon King's hand. Only Tianchen was meant to survive, leaving Linfeng deeply confused. He wonders if his own presence has triggered a major butterfly effect. It seems unlikely, but he decides it is best to ask Prophet Ser. But just as things settle down, a loud scream echoes from outside the prophet's room. Seeing his panicked secretary running over, he demands to know what is wrong. She gasps in absolute horror that the great prophet has been murdered. He was alive just an hour ago, so they must seal off the building immediately. They need to trace exactly who visited him tonight. The group is frozen in shock. Hearing of Ser's sudden demise, they wonder who could have seen him. Bai Qingfeng steps forward, claiming that he and Linfeng were the ones who met with the prophet. Linfeng immediately yells that this is complete nonsense since he hasn't even seen the prophet yet, but as he walked over earlier, he saw Bai Qingfeng lurking suspiciously by the door. Wait, a sudden realization washes over Linfeng. He points an angry finger and accuses Bai Qingfeng of the murder, declaring that he knew it the very second he caught him near the scene. Li grabs Linfeng's arm, begging him not to make any reckless assumptions. In a rage, Linfeng shoves her aside and barks at her to shut up, because this man. He has fooled absolutely everyone here, and he is not even the real Bai Qingfeng, Linfeng yells. He screams that Bai Qingfeng might have tricked the others, but that trickery will not work on him. He charges straight toward Bai Qingfeng, but as he lunges, he only manages to strike empty air. Bai Qingfeng easily slips past the fist. In an instant, he is standing right behind Linfeng. Whispering in his ear, he calls him complete trash, who could never hope to compare to Ling Xiao. He mockingly asks if a pathetic loser like him actually thinks he has any right to speak. Without waiting for an answer, he delivers a brutal blow straight to Linfeng's head. Linfeng struggles to understand how this is happening, his mind spinning in sheer disbelief. But a moment later, a boot slams down, pinning him to the floor. Li screams for them to stop. Tinian smirks. The Demon King is playing the part of the ruthless powerhouse perfectly. Standing over his fallen opponent, Bai Qingfeng thinks this should be enough to satisfy everyone. But something still feels quite off about this entire situation right now. Why was this pathetic kid so incredibly sure that he was not the real Bai Qingfeng? Bai Qingfeng remembers hearing about Linfeng before. After all, he is the younger brother of Ling Xiao, the legendary hero who is widely known as the very light of humanity. In comparison, Linfeng is rumored to be nothing but completely worthless, talentless trash. Seeing him now, those rumors are clearly true. In fact, he is even more pathetic than expected. Bai Qingfeng admits he prefers Ling Xiao. Linfeng seethes, wondering how he dares to call him trash. He crossed over into this body and gained unbelievable strength. He became a top warrior standing above everyone. How is he losing? Li begs Bai Qingfeng to go easy on Linfeng, assuming he did not mean to cause real harm. She pleads that Linfeng is a decent guy who has just been acting a bit too rash lately. Hearing Li defend him hurts his pride. Linfeng refuses to accept that he is trash. He tells himself he is not weak, then coldly demands to ask a single question. He asks Bai Qingfeng exactly who he was calling trash. Instantly, he breaks free from the boot, using his S-Class Omni-destroying claw. Bai Qingfeng is genuinely surprised to see this loser wielding a rare S-ranked weapon. Normal S-rank awakened heroes are usually no match for him. Besides, the Demon King knows Linfeng's name was never on the official human genius list. Suddenly, a loud voice cuts in, demanding that both of them stop fighting immediately. Linfeng is stunned, wondering why on earth his magic has suddenly vanished. The Demon King quickly guesses that this must be a rare, rule-based skill at play. The man stepping forward is actually the president of the Awakened Association. His unique power completely nullifies all active abilities in the area. He sternly reminds them that every single awakened warrior is a vital asset against demons. So why are they busy starting a senseless, internal war right here? This is the very first time the Demon King has seen the legendary president in person. And honestly, things are looking pretty bad for him right now. After all, he is outside the Demon Tower, meaning he lacks his usual absolute cheat powers. He no longer has endless health, infinite mana, or rule-ignoring abilities. Keeping his cool, Bai Qingfeng quickly apologizes for causing such a scene. He smoothly takes the blame and promises that this sort of trouble will not happen again. Linfeng, however, is not about to show the president any respect at all. He calls him a useless old man, demanding to know where he was earlier. Why did he not stop Bai Qingfeng from hitting him, but chooses to step in only now? The moment Bai Feng dared to strike back, does this mean the president is taking Bai Feng's side, or does he look down on him, thinking he is also just trash? Lin Feng was pathetic. The Demon King truly wondered if this whining idiot was actually the genius who claimed that S-class weapon from the divine artifact map, because honestly, looking at him now, the guy has absolutely zero brains or mental strength. So the president stepped in and told Lin Feng to shut his mouth. He was not picking any sides, and every decision he made was strictly for the sake of humanity. But Lin Feng cut him off, snapping back that there was no way he would believe that, sneering. Lin Feng grumbled. He hated how everyone looked down on him. Just wait, he muttered, because they had no clue how valuable he truly was. Soon the ultimate artifact would belong to him, and they would finally see who the true savior of this world really was. The president let out a heavy sigh as the brat left, placing a reassuring hand on Bai Feng's shoulder and admitting that he deeply respected him. He was strong, yet remained remarkably polite and calm. Feeling a bit awkward, Bai Feng just nodded, but inside he was actually thinking how ridiculous this was. People admired him way too much. It made zero sense. The president cleared his throat, sharing that his initial probe into the prophet's death had already turned up some rather shocking clues. He detected lingering traces of pure demonic energy at the scene, which meant one thing: no human was involved, and it was likely the work of a rogue demon who had already fled. Of course, a definitive conclusion would require a deeper and more thorough investigation, but the good news was their upcoming divine artifact. With that in mind, the president strongly urged Bai Feng to go along with Lin Feng. He believed Bai Feng also carried the fate of humanity's survival. Bai Feng forced a stiff nod. True, he carried it. Just on the dark side of the coin, the Demon King's side. As they parted ways, the president told them to keep pushing themselves hard, because the fate of the world would eventually rest on their youthful shoulders. Once that conflict solved, Leah headed out to find Lin Feng. He was extremely irritable lately, but suddenly Bai Feng grabbed her wrist, urging her to wait just a moment. He quickly apologized for being so forward, explaining that he had a single question: how much had Lin Feng changed from his old self, and what exactly triggered such a massive shift? The Demon King prayed that Leah wouldn't suspect his motives for asking such weird questions. Noticing her red face, Bai Feng realized he was still holding her hand and let go, stammering another quick apology. He claimed he was just worried about Lin Feng. He had acted too impulsively and wanted to apologize of him. Hearing this, Leah quietly decided that Bai Feng was actually a decent guy who genuinely cared. She admitted that back then Lin Feng was just an honest, quiet coward. Then he woke up, a completely different person. He suddenly began babbling crazy things about books, soul transmigration, and parallel worlds and cheat codes. She honestly thought he had completely lost his mind. But from that very moment, his entire personality shifted. He was no longer suddenly confident and bold, but he also somehow discovered where top-tier weapons and items were hidden, landing a map of ancient artifacts as if guided by some divine cheat code. With that, he could obtain anything. It fully explained his rise, scraping his way into the S-rank tier, using overpowered gear despite being weak. Lee added that the elders from both their families believed the hype, claiming Lin Feng achieved enlightenment or unlocked some god-level skill. But he kept completely quiet. Enlightenment, a hidden skill. The Demon King knew something was seriously off about this guy. He knew for a fact Lin Feng was not the real Bangfeng. Yet he never exposed him directly, knowing his fierce temper. Why on earth would he keep quiet? It was a massive secret. He could never tell his family or fiancé, unless, of course, he is not the real Lin Feng. It is a truth he cannot share, a total personality shift. Supreme knowledge of everything. Lin Feng is definitely possessed. Suddenly, a massive tremor shook the ground beneath their feet. Panic erupted through the streets as people started screaming in terror. A ranked demon had escaped the dungeon, looming over the city. Despair set in, with citizens doubting if anyone could actually defeat this beast. Then word quickly spread that Lin Feng had stepped up to fight. The rampaging monster was in a rank undead canine, a dog corpse. Armed with an S-rank flying sword of fire and ice, Lin Feng stepped up. He sneered at the beast, asking how it dared to run wild in his presence. He swung his blade, unleashing a barrage of razor-sharp ice spikes. Next, Lin Fun drew a second S-rank weapon, the Star Sword Meteor, declaring himself the ultimate hero of the city. He wanted all eyes on him. With a swift strike, he carved up the beast. Landing gracefully, he left the sliced-up dog corpse in the dust. The crowd went wild. Not even a rank monster stood a chance. Their beloved Lin Fun was now the genius on everyone's lips. But the Demon King just smirked, knowing exactly what they were facing. Before turning, the beast was just a stray dog killed by humans. Its bitter grudge absorbed the tower's demonic energy, fueling its evolution into an rank threat. It is an incredibly rare species. Most people have no clue what it can do. And trust me, it has one massive trait nobody expects. Lin Fun kept slashing at the corpse, screaming for it to die. Overwhelmed by the relentless, brutal barrage, the creature finally collapsed to the ground. But here is the terrifying catch with this specific undead monster. After taking enough heavy damage, it simply plays dead to fool everyone. While the crowd celebrates the supposed victory, the creature is secretly healing. It rises again as a deadly S-rank threat. Lin Fun basked in the praise, loving every second of the attention. People cheered and screamed their love, calling the fight absolutely legendary. And this was just the warm-up after beating an rank beast. Once he sealed the demon tower, the entire world would know his name. Suddenly, a low growl echoed behind him as a dark aura erupted. The demon he just defeated, somehow the lifeless corpse of the dog, mutated into a double S-rank hellhound. Before Lin Fun could even move, the beast spat a massive pillar of fire straight at him. Watching their great champion Lin Fun fall, the crowd fell completely silent. Seconds later, sheer panic erupted, and everyone started running for their lives. They had to run because a living demon meant only one terrifying thing. Meanwhile, a battered Lin Fun wondered how this nightmare was even possible. This beast had flattened him with just one strike, meaning that the weak demon he just fought was now a legendary double S-rank monster. The hellhound raised its massive paw to crush Lin Fun, but suddenly Li leaped forward, begging the young master to lean on her to escape. Supporting his weight, Li tried to run, but it was already too late. Li was falling into total despair when someone suddenly jumped in. Another awakened leaped in to help, as the hidden Demon King refused to eliminate Lin Fun just yet, still needing him to find the divine artifact. He needed to destroy it, so keeping Lin Fun alive was absolutely essential. Channeling his energy into his fist, Bangfang launched at the demonic. He glared at the hellhound, demanding if it failed to recognize its master. Instantly, the terrifying beast dropped to the ground, shivering right before Bangfang. With a cold stare, the Demon King ordered the creature to get lost. To the absolute surprise of everyone watching, the terrifying beast that easily defeated Lin Fun turned tail and fled like a total coward from Bangfang. The onlookers struggled to understand how a glance from him caused this. Could an elite demon really be that easily terrified by his gaze? But that wasn't the only mystery here. How did an rank beast suddenly become so powerful, or was it Lin Fun who grew weaker? Either way, Bangfang looked incredibly formidable for making such a beast flee. With deep gratitude, Li quickly thanked Bangfang for saving them both, and asked how he managed to scare off such a beast so easily. Bangfang casually replied that although the monster looked strong, it was weak. None of that really mattered, as long as his companion was safe. Ensuring Lin Fun survived was vital, especially since his future potential was set to match the legendary Li Tian. Suddenly, a furious Lin Fun lunged forward, grabbing Bangfang by his clothes and demanding the truth. He accused him of scheming, knowing the ranked demon's hidden secret, and using that forbidden knowledge to humiliate him. Bangfang must have anticipated that the beast would evolve, but purposely chose to keep silent about it, choosing to watch him get utterly dragged through the dirt. Lin Fun bitterly asked if he was truly satisfied stealing all the glory. Did he enjoy basking in the spotlight? After all, this entire mess was his fault. Lin Fun kept blaming Bangfang for all the chaos in front of everyone. He called him a scumbag, demanding how he dared to put his own safety before his comrade's life, right in front of the entire crowd. His vicious selfishness was the only reason he stood by and watched. The Demon King finally realized he had made a major mistake trusting him. Tian realized that some people just do not deserve to be saved. Lin Fun kept aggressively blaming Bangfang, pointing fingers with absolute hatred. Then Bangfang grabbed his wrist with incredible force, demanding to know what secret he meant. He openly mocked Linfang, calling him a fool and a fake hero. He pointed out that Linfang's pathetic attempt to act like a hero had completely failed. Then Bakingfang casually offered a completely sarcastic apology to him. He claimed he had no desire to play along, leaving Linfang growling in pure frustration. But before he could strike back, the surrounding whispers stopped him cold. Tenyan was disgusted, admitting she never expected such disgraceful behavior from him. Seriously, what kind of person turns on the very man who just saved his life? A fat man in the crowd instantly agreed, adding that Linfang always made baseless accusations. Tiantan scoffed. Linfang was clearly acting without thinking. He was returning a life-saving favor, in the worst way possible. The secretary recalled the crime scene. Only those two were found there. She openly wondered which one of them was the actual monster who took his life. Tian also pointed out that Linfang had suddenly become far stronger than before. She openly asked if he had turned to some forbidden art. How else could he have achieved such a massive boost in power? Hearing their insults, Linfang mentally cursed at these blind fools. They couldn't see the villain's true face, and now everyone was siding with him. Then Bakingfang suddenly released his grip, catching Linfang completely off guard. He held out his hand again, claiming this was all just a misunderstanding. He smoothly suggested they should both calm down and make peace right there. Linfang was absolutely livid at how shamelessly Bakingfang was playing them. He was playing the innocent victim now that he had the upper hand. It was a calculated, dirty move to win over the crowd. Even so, Linfang shook his hand, fully aware it was just theater. But if they were playing games, he would gladly show him who was the real master. He claimed he lost his temper, apologizing to everyone for being so rude. He promised it would never happen again, putting on a polite smile. He even thanked Bakingfang for saving his life in front of everyone. Smiling warmly, he asked Bakingfang to look after him from now on. Bakingfang waved it off, saying there was no need for thanks. Instead, Bakingfang leaned in close to Linfang, dropping his voice to a whisper. He whispered that he was glad not to be the sole suspect in the murder. Because in reality, he was the psychopath who murdered the great prophet in cold blood. Hearing this confession, Linfang's blood instantly boiled with pure rage. He was enduring all this humiliation because of this psychopath. He ripped his hand away. He screamed that he knew it and swung a fist right at his face. But before the punch landed, Liya caught his wrist, stopping his attack cold. She demanded to know why he was acting so completely unhinged. With everyone watching, Linfang was forced to swallow his anger. Wrenching his hand free again, Linfang muttered that he knew the truth. He stared at Bakingfang, wondering who this monster truly was and what he wanted. Besides, the novel never mentioned that Bakingfang was this dangerous. He is just too powerful, and he cannot let this story drift off course. Looking at Linfang, the Demon King saw nothing but pure, unbridled fury. Honestly, he only wanted to snatch that legendary sealing artifact from him. But if the kid got in his way, he would gladly take Linfang's life. Once this annoying treasure was gone, wiping out humanity would be a breeze. Getting rid of pests is always satisfying. Later, they met up at Café Seer. The moment their waitress walked away, Li thanked Bai Qingfang for saving her yesterday. He shrugged it off, no big deal. Truth is, the Demon King barely remembered if he had even saved her. He had completely forgotten. Li then explained their next quest to find the artifact. She mentioned that Linfeng would not even let the team look at the map. He simply kept insisting that the powerful relic was hidden somewhere in the south. Li knew it would be a long trip and hoped he could tolerate Linfeng. She felt a bit awkward asking Bai Qingfang to play nice with him, begging him to just ignore Linfeng's incredibly rude attitude for now. Growing up together, she knew he was not bad, but the Demon King knew better. The original soul was long gone, replaced by a pathetic loser from another world. This parasite stole a child's body and now basks in a girl's blind affection. He is soaking up love meant for someone else, all while playing the hero. Imagine calling yourself the savior of the world when you are just a thief. Chuckling at the irony, the Demon King took a sip, then immediately spat it out. It was incredibly bitter and absolutely disgusting. How do humans even drink this stuff? Clearly, he still had a lot to learn about bizarre human preferences. This was saying a lot, considering he barely had any options in his past life. Bai Qingfang casually asked Li if she ever suspected her fiancé was actually sick. That could explain why his entire personality had suddenly shifted so drastically. He then asked her if she truly wanted the old Linfeng back, suggesting there might be an item down south that could cure him. If they grabbed it along the way, it might restore Linfeng to his normal self. Li jumped up in excitement, asking if he could really make him normal again. Bai Qingfeng gave her a reassuring nod, promising that it was absolutely possible. Meanwhile, out on the streets, an irritated Linfeng was deep in thought. He knew this whole setup was merely a prequel to the main event. Yet the plot was already drifting away from the original novel he read. Bai Qingfeng was supposed to be dead after his encounter with the Demon King. Even the Grand Prophet got eliminated way before the actual story could begin. Recalling their meeting yesterday, Linfeng realized Bai Qingfeng had acted incredibly shady. It almost looked like the guy was trying to sneak out of the building. But the moment he heard about the artifact, he eagerly joined the party. Was this guy the actual glitch, causing the storyline to spin out of control? In the original timeline, Bai Qingfeng was supposed to leave that day. That explained why this temporary imposter was never even mentioned in the book. Plus, the killer who murdered the Great Prophet was never caught in the novel. He simply vanished without a trace into the shadows right after the crime. Since he was supposed to disappear yesterday, no clues were left behind. Find him since he stopped pretending to be Bingfeng. Still, it was due to his interference that the person meant to disappear instead. Joined their mission to find the sacred sealing artifact, reflecting on everything. Linfeng wondered if this would permanently ruin the original storyline. Linfeng clutched his head as a splitting headache began to set in. Back in his past life, he was nothing but complete, ordinary trash. Now, as an otherworld protagonist, he never expected such crazy complications. Because the narrative is completely spiraling out of control, suddenly, Linfeng spotted Xiao Ye sitting right by the window of a nearby cafe. He wondered what Xiao Ye and Bingfeng were doing together. Finally, Linfeng made a decision. He refuses to let the plot drift any further from its path. Because he is the sole person here who knows how everything unfolds. He will get whatever he desires. He was chosen for this. The next day, the association president told Linfeng that securing this item was vital for the survival of humanity, meaning he had to lead the squad. As the secretaries clapped, Linfeng and his crew officially set off. But before departing, Linfeng looked back at Bingfeng with a warning glance, silently telling him to just wait. Sometime later, within the scorched lands, charred undead ghouls began shuffling toward their newest targets, Linfeng's group. Bingfeng easily blasted the walking dead with powerful spells, while Linfeng slashed right through them with his sword. After a quick skirmish, Linfeng noted that these creatures were actually weak, but they never stopped coming. Meanwhile, the Demon King realized how bizarre it was to be fighting demons alongside mere humans. It truly felt like the entire world had gone mad. But none of that mattered. He was just playing a part for now. Suddenly, a lethal green poison started pouring from Lu Zioki's body. Lifting his blade, he drove it deep into the dirt, releasing a toxic wave that turned every demon to dust on impact. Talk about overpowered. Once the corruption cleared, Lu Zioki exhaled deeply and slowly sheathed his sword as the glowing toxic markings on his skin faded. Seeing such raw power, even the hidden Demon King had to admit that this young awakened warrior was actually incredibly impressive. Gushing with pure excitement, Tintin told Lu Zioki he was absolutely amazing. He brushed it off, admitting he was terrible in single combat but excelled when it came to wiping out massive waves of monsters. That was the only way someone like him could truly be useful. Watching him closely, Linfeng realized his instincts about the boy were right. Gathering the group, he announced that they needed to talk. The artifact they wanted was close, but the local terrain was extremely dangerous and filled with lethal, unknown beasts lurking in the shadows. Their entire journey ahead was going to be significantly more dangerous. Plus, they had been traveling for 5 grueling days without any rest. He suggested they return to town to rest while he scouted ahead alone. But Gao and Lu Zioki immediately protested, calling it a terrible idea. Lu Zioki demanded to know how the leader could possibly go alone. But what if he encountered a deadly enemy? Lin Feng explained that this was his duty as their leader to find the safest path for his people. Besides, his mind was already made up, so there was no point in trying to change his mind, though his followers hated the idea of him going into danger completely alone. Overwhelmed by emotion, Lu Zioki broke down, sobbing about How honorable and kind their master was. Lin Feng secretly smirked because everything had gone exactly as he planned, all thanks to Lu Zioki, a prodigy born in a demonic lair and tempered in poisonous caves, destined to become a double S rank powerhouse whose name will shake the world, though their bond right now is just a temporary alliance. Originally, Lu Zioki was the hero's most trusted companion, and his absolute loyalty played a massive role in hero's rise to greatness. He only became that loyal because the protagonist used premium ingredients to brew an S-rank purifying potion which purged his body of toxins built up since childhood. From that moment on, he was ready to die for him. But since the main plot hasn't even started yet, Lin Feng can easily win Lu Zioki over before the hero shows up. He will get the legendary artifact and steal the protagonist's destiny. He will completely replace the hero, becoming the ultimate savior of this world. Lin Feng ordered his companions to wait for him in town, promising they would resume their journey. Afterward, only a handful of people in this world know where to find those rare ingredients, and fortunately, he is one of them because the novel detailed their exact locations. Lin Feng was confident that Lu Zioki would soon become his loyal pawn, though the Demon King knows little of human nature. He is absolutely certain that Lin Feng is not the type to ever sacrifice himself. Since they had free time, Liya mentioned hearing rumors about an underground auction happening nearby, suggesting they all meet up there in a few days. Hearing this, Tinian asked to tag along with Liya from the corner of her eye. Liya glanced at Bai Jingfeng, recalling his warning. After all, if he was right about Lin Feng's soul being slowly corrupted by a demon and warping his personality, then she desperately needed to buy that artifact to cleanse his soul and bring him back. With that goal, Liya and Tinian walked off together toward the secret auction. Gahu noticed the others splitting up and suggested they head back to town and rest up, just as the young master had commanded. But before they could take a step, Bai Jingfeng called out, asking Gahu to stop. Confused, Gahu asked if he had an issue or if he was boldly defying their master's direct orders. Gahu already knew Lin Feng deeply distrusted this shady fellow. Figuring he was up to no good, Bai Jingfeng admitted he was touched by Lin Feng's decision to shield them from danger, but that didn't mean he wasn't still worried, so he proposed a different idea, asking why they don't quietly tail him instead to back him up if things go south. Upon hearing this daring suggestion, Gahu froze in his tracks. He immediately agreed, since he was also deeply worried about their lord, and Lioi praised Bakingfong for being so fiercely determined to protect their master. Hearing what the other three were discussing, Leah realized that Bakingfong was genuinely worried about Lin Feng. Turns out, Bakingfong is actually quite kind-hearted at heart, but Bakingfong claimed they were flattering him because everything he does solely for the sake of humanity. Still, he really wanted to see what Lin Feng was truly made of. The first dungeon Lin Feng headed to was an S-rank malicious chessboard. According to the records, the legendary cleansing crystal was hidden somewhere on this giant board, but its exact location remained a mystery. Suddenly, Lin Feng felt a sudden, terrifying chill run down his spine, wondering where this intense feeling of dread was coming from. Lin Feng looked around. Right behind him, he saw a massive Red King moving incredibly fast. To make matters worse, this towering figure was charging directly towards him. Suddenly, the king halted, and a terrifying chess spirit began to emerge from within. Lin Feng immediately reached for his sword, bracing to defend himself. The moment the spirit of the Red King reached its hand toward him, Lin Feng struck back with a heavy swing, but the entity was far stronger than he had anticipated, sending Lin Feng flying backward. He crashed directly toward another stone figure behind him. Before Lin Feng could even recover from that brutal blow, hostile spirits started manifesting from the white piece. Without wasting a single second, the pawn spirit thrust its spear directly at its target, but at the very last moment, Lin Feng barely managed to dodge. Immediately after, the spirit of the knight appeared right before him. Lin Feng drew his S-class weapon, the horse cutter, yelling at the beast that he would slice it to pieces, but as soon as he swung for a lethal strike, the horse bit his blade right in half. It was useless. Countless souls of fallen warriors had been absorbed by these chess pieces, trapped here for eternity as the endless battles raged on. Over their long existence, they had consumed so many vengeful hunter souls that their power had far surpassed a typical S rank. realizing his massive mistake. Lin Feng decided he needed to escape as fast as possible. Luckily, he held one perfect artifact for this. The moment Lin Feng activated it, glowing wings sprouted from his back. Immediately taking flight, he soared upward and unsheathed his blade, preparing to parry any incoming attacks. But then, something entirely unexpected happened. The gigantic Soul Queen swung her massive hand, already prepared to crush the helpless Lin Feng with one devastating strike. Before the terrified warrior could even process what was happening, the spirit of the Queen slammed him back down to the ground in the blink of an eye. Only after that single overwhelming strike from the White Queen, Lin Feng lay defeated, and what was worse was that he crashed right between two massive figures. Looking up at the ominous ghosts of the Red King and White Queen, Lin Feng realized he was at his absolute limit with no hope of escape. The king slowly reached his giant hand toward Lin Feng, who instinctively shielded his face, crying out. He was completely unwilling to die in this cursed place. After all, he was summoned here to become a legendary hero. But suddenly, a massive clawed hand slammed down directly onto the Red King's head. Within seconds, the Crimson King was completely obliterated, leaving Lin Feng shielding himself from the raining debris. He wondered who did it. The strike was so fast he had no time to register the attack. Meanwhile, this savior had completely destroyed the giant White Queen. Not just one or two, but in a mere blink, every single remaining chess piece. Who on earth possessed that kind of insane power? Suddenly, Lin Feng heard a voice. Liu Xiaoyak and Gahu calling out to him. Gahu rushed over, anxiously asking if Lin Feng was okay. Lin Feng assured them he was perfectly fine, then asked why they had followed him. Gahu explained that Baking Feng was deeply concerned. Even though Gahu felt he was not of much help, he still worried. So he tagged along with Baking Feng, waiting just around the corner. Just in case he needed backup, Liu Xiaoyak quickly backed up Gahu's story and questioned Lin Feng. Did he not say he was only going out to scout the area? Why did he sneak into an S-class dungeon all by himself? It was total madness, but thankfully, Baking Feng suggested they follow. Hearing Baking Feng's name left Lin Feng completely speechless. That meant only one thing. He was the one who did it. Nearby, Baking Feng stood among the shattered chess pieces. Suddenly, a flood of glowing souls drifted up from the broken stone, and one of the spirits offered a glowing crystal directly to Baking Feng. The Demon King realized these were the souls of the hunters who fell here. They were offering their gratitude for setting them free from their stone prisons. Even though they recognized his true, dark identity, they gifted him a purifying crystal. Meanwhile, Lin Feng was inwardly losing his mind over this disaster. This was absolutely the worst-case scenario, because the Demon King had now obtained one of the key ingredients needed to brew the special elixir. Noticing Lin Feng staring at him in shock, Baking Feng smugly shook the prize. He taunted Lin Feng, asking if this was the item he wanted so badly. Then he declared it too bad, because it belonged entirely to him now. The Demon King had no idea what the crystal actually did, but if Lin Feng wanted it, it had to be incredibly valuable. Gahu exclaimed. How lucky they were to have Baking Feng around, suggesting they stick together. Lin Feng's veins bulged with absolute fury, but he was completely unable to start a public fight over it. After all, everyone present believed Baking Feng had earned it, even though he did not need any of his help. With just a little more time, he would have crushed the boss himself. Lin Feng loudly told the group they did not need to worry, and immediately sprinted away into the distance. He yelled for them to head back while he handled things himself. Even without that crystal, he could still manage to brew a weaker half-purification potion. The effects would be watered down, of course, but it would have to do. Yet his suspicious behavior only made the Demon King more curious about what he was plotting. From this moment on, Baking Feng planned to copy Lin Feng's moves. Next up was a dangerous S-class dungeon, a lake of dried bones. Before Lin Feng could reach the boss, Baking Feng was already sitting on its skull. He smugly greeted Lin Feng, asking him how he was doing while casually tossing a highly valuable item, the legendary Three Fires pill, in his hand. Shaking with anger, Lin Feng growled through clenched teeth at Baking Feng for once again interfering in his business, before cursing and storming off disgruntled to his next destination, the Regressed Bone Cliff dungeon. But once again, Lin Feng was running late. Baking Feng pretended to be surprised by his sudden arrival. mockingly hoping he had not hurt himself, staring at the bone dragon. Scales in Baking Fong's hands, Lin Feng demanded to know why he had followed him. At the breath of the Abyss dungeon, Baking Fong offered another casual greeting to the exhausted Lin Feng, who had caught up, but his reaction was priceless as Baking Fong effortlessly overtook him again. Claiming the fourth rare material, peerless water, soon after night fell and Lin Feng's group decided to camp, but he was still screaming at the top of his lungs in fury while Gu tried to soothe him, suggesting Baking Fong was only acting out of concern, but Lin Feng remained furious that he could not get one item while Baking Fong took every last one. Worse, he could not even speak up against him. Meanwhile, Baking Fong, now holding all those rare treasures, quietly observed the entire dramatic scene from afar. After closely inspecting the items, the Demon King still had no idea what Lin Feng was trying to do with them. They were highly valuable, but Lin Feng surely did not need any extra cash. While the Demon King pondered over these confusing motives, Lu Zioki stepped forward, asking him if he would go and try to persuade Lin Feng, but noticing Lu Zioki's materials, he suddenly cried out because, get this, these were the exact materials he had been seeking for all these long years. Lu Zioki was surprised when Baking Fong asked to look at those items. The Demon King immediately initiated his legendary refinement and combination process on the loot. Through his incredible mastery, he crafted an S-class cleansing potion. The moment Baking Fong finished brewing the liquid, Lu Zioki cried out again. With tears welling in his eyes, he gasped that this was the exact S-class potion he had begged countless master alchemists to make, but none of them ever succeeded. Baking Fong casually asked if he needed it. Then, tossing the potion over, he said to take it since he did not need it. Feeling incredibly anxious over being handed such a priceless treasure for absolutely nothing, Lu Zioki asked if he was truly serious. He cried out in absolute shock, wondering if Baking Fong had actually handed him the draft without asking for anything in return. Thanks to this miracle elixir, he could finally cleanse his body of all the harsh toxins built up over the long years. Overwhelmed by emotion, Lu Zioki tightly hugged Baking Fong's leg, crying that he was a wonderfully good person. He solemnly vowed that from this day forward, he would be his most loyal disciple. Baking Fong snapped at the idiot to get off him, demanding to know why he was being so dramatic. After all, this was only a standard S-class potion, but Lu Zioki gripped Baking Fong's leg even tighter, declaring that his benefactor was incredibly selfless for demanding nothing in return for his kindness. Because of that, he promised never to let go. Baking Fong muttered that this display was utterly pathetic as he tried to pry Lu Zioki off. He was the great Demon King. Why did he keep attracting these annoying human followers? He was incredibly irritated. Meanwhile, Lin Feng watched from afar as Baking Fong struggled to shake off the overly emotional Lu Zioki, staring at this absurd scene. Lin Feng is furious. Bayoung went behind his back to help Lu Zioki. Sensing Lin Feng's massive rage, the Demon King begins to wonder what is wrong with him suddenly, and why are Lin Feng's collected materials the exact ones needed for the potion that Lu Zioki has been desperately searching for all this time. Only now does the Demon King realize this. It was Lin Feng's clever way of making Lu Zioki comfortable with him, but in the end he did it instead. It seems plausible, but how could Lin Feng possibly know where to find these rare ingredients? Also, he can't fathom why Lin Feng is absolutely sure that Baking Fang is dead. The Demon King figures he must wait until Laya returns with the soul restoring artifact, realizing there is absolutely nothing he can do about it. Lin Feng takes a deep breath and suggests they head back to rest. Meanwhile, they will wait for Laya and Tianchen to return, after which they can hunt for the divine artifact together. Biting his lip, Lin Feng swears he will no longer let Baking Fang ruin his plans. He remembers Gao Hu has served the Lin family for generations, and Lin Feng promised him since childhood that he would treat him like real family, but Lin Feng now coldly sneers. So what of it? Has Gao Hu already forgotten his loyalty oath? Lin Feng reminds him that he should never forget he is destined to become the hero who claims the legendary sealing artifact, meaning he carries the massive weight of responsibility for all of mankind. So why should Gao Hu hesitate to sacrifice himself for their future? Gao Hu is about to object, but quietly swallows his words, humbly bowing in total obedience. Gao Hu declares he is willing to die, not for the sake of humanity, but simply to honor the sacred oath he swore to his true master, Lin Feng. Sneers inside, to him this fierce loyalty is just pathetic nonsense. Soon after, Baking Fang is seen strolling peacefully through the quiet city park, approaching the grand fountain. He senses something is deeply wrong with the water. Without warning, the fountain water surges violently straight toward him, instantly turning into a massive block of ice, but Baking Fang swiftly dodges it. The Demon King instantly realizes that an assassin is targeting him, with no time to think. The unseen enemy strikes again, pulling the fountain water high into the freezing air. In a flash, every single drop of that suspended water hardens into solid ice. Baking Fang wonders how on earth the entire pond froze solid instantly. This must be a double S-rank spell. But when did he ever offend an expert of that caliber, giving Baking Fang zero time to react? The unseen attacker rains down the massive ice, and just like that, Baking Fang is buried completely beneath it. Gaohu unleashed this devastating power using a forbidden double S-rank technique, trading his own lifespan for temporary godlike strength, but to everyone's absolute shock, Baking Fang is alive, casually walking right out of the ice ruins, and what amuses him is that Gaohu's desperate strike barely even left a scratch. Baking Fang calmly tells Gaohu that he is actually the very first person to ever draw blood, but this is where his luck ends. Gaohu turns to him, saying that out of deep respect, he will end this in one final blow so he wouldn't suffer needlessly. Right after, he unleashed his endless radiating life force. Bang Fong disagreed with Gaohu, yet was still curious to see what a double S-rank could actually do. Suddenly, the dripping blood on Bang Fong's face instantly froze into sharp ice. Immediately after, it lunged straight at him, but Bang Fong managed to dodge the incredibly sudden lethal strike. The Demon King was shocked that Gaohu could even freeze his blood, because it meant before he could even process it, he was doubled over from a bitter cold spreading deep inside. He felt himself slowly freezing from the inside out, while Gaohu smugly looked down and told Bang Fong that he had guessed right. He could easily manipulate any liquid, including the blood inside a human body. But looking closer, Gaohu was suddenly very surprised as he noticed Bang Fong's blood was completely different from that of normal humans. Worse, his target's blood was something he could not fully control at all. Since that was the case, Gaohu chose a far more brutal method. He unleashed his massive aura. Dark storm clouds swirled above as an icy flame ignited directly in Gaohu's hands. Looking at that dense black energy, the Demon King recognized it as pure mana. Bang Fong asked how a human like him dared use demonic mana, and if he was not afraid of losing his mind. Gaohu simply replied that this was done for his young master's sake, and for the ultimate glory of the Lin family. The weather kept worsening, lightning ripping violently through the dark heavens. Right after that, all of the nearby water surged toward Bang Fong, solidifying into sharp ice blades, unable to dodge the relentless onslaught. Bang Fong blocked with his bare body, taking constant minor damage, step by step. Gaohu let out a deafening roar, striking Bang Fong with absolutely everything he had, unleashing a massive, devastating ice blast. Right after that, the onslaught stopped, leaving the entire park buried under giant frozen glaciers, having drained almost all his life force. Gaohu collapsed to his trembling knees, still desperately trying to hold on. Once he stopped shaking, Gaohu exhaled and whispered that it was finally over, meaning his own life was finished too. Suddenly he heard slow footsteps approaching, which wait, look at this, staring at a perfectly living Bang Fong. Gaohu gasped, how is this possible? Shaking off the icy dust, Bang Fong casually remarked that it was indeed over, admitting he had actually hesitated. Bang Fong even went to praise Gaohu for being able to chip away his massive health pool to such an extent, though if you think about it, he didn't really lose that much. Anyway, since Gaohu was done, it was his turn to strike. Still unable to believe this, Gaohu stammered that this simply couldn't be, but Bang Fong slowly reached out his hand to grab the face of the panicking old man, quietly stating that in that case he will end him. Realizing his grim fate, Gaohu bowed and begged to be killed, because he wouldn't live much longer anyway. Nothing was really important anymore, and all he wanted now was to sacrifice himself for the sake of the Lin family. Gaohu begged him to do it faster, but Bang Fong explained that even without an execution, Gaohu would die soon because of his own actions. He had overestimated himself completely by sacrificing his very own life force just to unleash a lethal forbidden technique. Right then, Bang Fong began using his potent healing Magic confused, Gao asked what was actually happening and why he was being healed. Bang Feng dryly questioned, "Did I ever give you permission to die?" Honestly, the Demon King. Into even more trouble, and besides, his target was never some small timer like Gao. Gao asked how anyone could be so detached, especially since he was the one who had just tried to take his life, but Bai King Feng claimed he was merely touched by Gao's deep loyalty, saying he respected men like him, but the Demon King just made up a random excuse because his ultimate goal was not just to kill strong warriors. He wanted to destroy the sealing artifact and then eliminate all of mankind. He couldn't risk his grand plans over minor details. Besides, they were already under close watch for quite a while. Meanwhile, Li was amazed by how incredibly kind and gentle Bai King Feng was. She had never met a man quite like him before, so powerful yet so remarkably straightforward. Once he finished the healing process, Bai King Feng told Gao to head back and get some rest, and if he was worried about explaining his failure to his master, he could just fake a severe injury to play along. Gao was deeply moved by what Bai King Feng did for him, grabbing Bai King Feng's hand to ask how he could ever repay such a debt. Having failed to assassinate Bai King Feng, Gao had no choice but to return completely empty-handed. Meanwhile, the hidden Demon King was quietly thrilled. To have one less obstacle out of the way, he was down to his final problem. But he still wondered if he had played his hand too aggressively, potentially raising unwanted suspicion from others. Suddenly, Bai King Feng collapsed to one knee and clutched his chest in pain, realizing he had actually been hurt during the fight. With Gaohu, Li quickly dashed out of her hiding spot to help him up. She urgently asked if he was okay, but Bai King Feng could only offer a weak, pained groan. Secretly, the Demon King laughed because she had completely fallen. For his act, Li whispered that she knew almost nobody could survive a double S rank assault completely unscathed. He had put everything on the line to fight decisively against Gaohu. Bai King Feng acted surprised to see Li, asking her how she got here and if she secured the soul restoration potion. Li explained that absolutely nobody at the auction could match her wealth, so she bought the potion at a massive premium, but she confessed she was quite worried that Lin Feng might feel she doubted him if she just handed it over directly. She couldn't stop worrying about what might happen if she was wrong, either. What if his soul hadn't been switched? The potion could actually end up hurting him badly. Suddenly, Bai King Feng gently lifted her chin and told her he believed the real issue was actually her. Since she was incredibly beautiful, he was certain that countless men would easily fall for her. This meant she would likely be the primary target of whoever had taken over Lin Feng's body, making him deeply concerned for her safety. Feeling a bit flustered, Li softly asked if he truly found her beautiful. Many men had praised her looks before, but hearing it from Bai King Feng brought her genuine happiness rather than her usual disgust. He admitted that even though he knew she was engaged to Lin Feng, he simply couldn't bear to see her get hurt. Looking closely at the potion vial, Li said she understood everything completely. Right after saying this, thanking Bai King Feng, she gently pushed him back and promised she would do whatever it took to make Lin Feng drink the potion. Bai King Feng told her he was relieved for her, but secretly, the Demon King was plotting his next move. It was insanely easy to manipulate people using their greed, jealousy, and pure obsession. Plus, besides Li, he already had another easy target to control. Gahu was shocked to hear that their young master was currently possessed, wondering if some stranger had truly taken over the young master's body. A bit later, Lin Feng sat down for dinner with Tian and Li. Lu Zioki asked why only 4 of them were dining, wondering where Bangfeng and Gahu were. Lin Feng shrugged, saying they should not wait for those two, suggesting they start eating. After that, the young master turned to Shioya, explaining that while she was gone, he surveyed the local dungeons and mapped out a few clean paths so she could follow him without any trouble. Meanwhile, Li felt incredibly anxious about her next move against the young master. Her goal was to get Lin Feng to drink a special potion to test if Bangfeng's suspicions were correct. Stepping forward, she handed him a bowl and claimed she brewed this medicine after hearing about his recent painful injuries. A few days ago, Lin Feng smiled, thanking her for the sweet concern, and suddenly grabs Li by the waist, sliding his hand down, which is incredibly creepy. He whispered a promise that he would treat her beautifully from now on. Seeing her blush, Lu Zioki asked if she was okay. Li insisted that everything was fine. Deep down, Li knew the real Lin Feng would never behave This boldly, he had always been painfully shy around her since childhood, and was never even able to confess his feelings. This meant that Bingfeng was entirely correct. This was an imposter, Li backed away, telling the stranger to keep his distance, leaving Linfeng confused by her sudden reaction. Just then, the main doors suddenly swung open with a very loud crash. Lu Zioki was quite surprised, but she was still happy to see Gahu arrive, and quickly asked if he had some urgent business to report. Linfeng was also caught off guard by Gahu's arrival, though for completely different reasons, since he assumed this meant their secret mission was fully completed. With great success, standing up, a pleased Linfeng warmly greeted Gahu, saying he had been incredibly worried. Gahu then bowed low, explaining that as ordered. He unleashed the forbidden technique, sacrificing over 20 to 30 years of his life, but before the loyal servant could even finish speaking, Linfeng cut in, praising Gahu and declaring that the sacrifice was well worth the massive price. He then promised to personally look after his future from now on, but just as Linfeng offered Gahu a seat at dinner, he notices a figure behind Gahu, turning dead pale. Talk about a massive shock. With a cold smirk, Bingfeng finally stepped out from right behind Gahu's back. He mockingly asked Linfeng if he was surprised that he survived such a lethal attempt. Gahu then approached the young master, quietly whispering that he had gathered some shocking intel, but refusing to hear the traitor out. Linfeng barked at Gahu to back off and roughly shoved him aside. In that chaotic split second, Li leapt from her seat, rushing behind Bingfeng for protection, loudly warning him that Linfeng was acting extremely strange and had to be watched. Absolutely fuming with anger, Linfeng reminded Li that since she was his fiancée, Lukoki demanded to know what she was doing. Tian was asked if she sensed some kind of tension building between Captain Linfeng and Mr. Bin. She mocked the idea, claiming it was impossible, since they were supposedly so close, but Linfeng blamed everything on a complete jerk like Gahu who failed at a simple task. This deeply hurt Gahu, hearing these harsh words from his young master, who used to be so quiet, yet incredibly kind to the servants. To make matters worse, Linfeng knew about Gahu being injured, so why glare with such pure disgust? There was only one explanation, and if so, the true young master was in grave danger. Meanwhile, Tian turned to Lei, asking which side she would join. If a massive brawl erupted right now, Li gasped, wondering who on earth would even be fighting, then spun around to find Gahu grabbing something off the table. Gahu confessed that he had failed and was fully prepared to take whatever brutal punishment his master had in store, but first he begged Linfeng to prioritize his health, offering him a bowl of vital medicine. Because he was deeply worried, ignoring the servant, Linfeng snatched the bowl and spat out that useless trash would always remain trash. If he failed his primary mission, then serving medicine was his only remaining use. Anyway, Linfeng gulped the medicine down simply to save face in public and avoid looking weak, but suddenly a strange and violent burning sensation hit him. Dark, pulsing veins bulged across his flesh. Instantly, Linfeng began choking himself. Deep within, the real Linfeng confronted his imposter, warning that he was the true soul Lei had been protecting. The fake was stunned by this development. Li and Gahu watched in complete horror as their young master convulsed. Completely clueless about this body snatching, Li desperately asked her captain what was wrong and who he was talking to. The demon king smiled, wanting Linfeng to cause a massive scene right then and there to maximize the chaos. Even if Linfeng possessed the secret location of the sacred artifact, it did not matter, since Linfeng was completely powerless now to fight back. Deep inside, the real Linfeng battled his imposter, desperately demanding his body back. Suddenly, the fake Linfeng grabbed the tablecloth, flipping the feast everywhere, and bolted out the door. Li called out, asking why he was in such a rush. In truth, the real Linfeng was tearing his consciousness apart, and he could not let the others discover his secret identity. Li was now absolutely certain that something was terribly wrong with Linfeng. Gahu asked what their next move should be, but Li was clueless. Meanwhile, the Demon King and Tian shared a smug look, pleased that everything was falling into place. Retreating to his chamber, Linfeng frantically began to write down his true story, explaining that his own soul had crossed worlds to reclaim this body, but his time was short. As the dark imposter took control, weeping, he penned down his final words. Knowing he might never command his own flesh again, he had to leave something behind to help, so he drew a secret guide to defeat the Transmigrated imposter, recalling his past life, he knew the fate of this world. Was written in a novel titled Hero Defeats Demon King. Having memorized the entire book, he decided to pass these secrets down to someone trustworthy. It all starts with a brilliant young guy named Li Hai. In the future, he is destined to become the hero who had to leave his native land for the big city, where he immediately crossed paths with a hopeless scoundrel who deserved to die. That scum was Lin Feng, and because of him, Li Hai became deeply hated by the entire Lin family, and it made his life a living nightmare. Yet before the first winter snowflake could even hit the ground, the Chosen One kills the Demon King, using memories from another world's soul. He knows that a man named Bai Qingfeng is truly righteous and kind, which is why he is leaving this letter to him. If Bai Qingfeng can somehow overcome this foreign soul, he will receive this letter. Once he returns to headquarters, by then Mr. Bai should be able to use these secrets to help the real protagonists save their world and slay the Demon King. Lin Feng knew this was his only good deed he had ever done in his entire life. Right now, his soul is weakening, which means he will soon lose complete control of his own body. In his final moments, Lin Feng prayed that Mr. Bai would find a way to stop the entity controlling him. Soon, Lin Feng's soul completely vanished, and control of the body returned to the imposter. He is absolutely furious. This mess is already annoying. Lin Feng ruined his plans, and he cannot let anyone discover his true identity, so he decides to get rid of them tomorrow. This S-rank dungeon is the Cave of 10,000 Demons. Tian notes that, as expected from a place hiding a divine artifact fragment, this spot is incredible. Staring at the massive statues, Liu Shaoqi wonders aloud where the demons are. And if Captain Lin Feng did something, without hesitating, Lin Feng walks right up to the glowing divine fragment. Just as planned, he finally grabs it. Sensing danger, Leah whispers to Gahu to prepare to steal the fragment without hurting Lin Feng, but the moment the relic touches Lin Feng's hand, he unleashes a sudden barrage of magic right at his allies. The pure power of this fragment is insane, granting overwhelming strength to any awakened hunter, barely dodging the blast. Gahu demands to know why he is turning on them, but Lin Feng is already sprinting toward the exit. He sneers, asking if they seriously thought he was blind to their little scheme. He tells them to stay put and let the dungeon monsters tear them apart. Since things turned out this way, they can just rot in this cave. Once he gets rid of these pests, there will be absolutely nobody left alive to question his true identity. Sensing the danger, Leah orders the group to brace themselves. Instantly, massive demon statues shed their stone skin and charge directly at the hunters. Bai Qingfeng screams at everyone to run immediately, but Tian yells back that they will never make it. Lin Feng has trapped them here and wore them down, meaning they simply cannot outrun all these furious beasts. Bai Qingfeng offers to cover their retreat, urging them to go. The group is completely stunned by his words. Realizing he is about to sacrifice his life for them, Tian and Gahu drag Leah and Liu Shaoqi away as they refuse to leave him behind. Gao explains that Bingfeng is holding the line for them, so they cannot let him down. They must run as fast as possible, so his brave sacrifice is not wasted. Bingfeng urges them to move faster while he prepares to seal the gate behind them. He promises to hold off the incoming demon horde for as long as he can. As Tenyan flees, she wonders why the Demon King would ever bother saving humans. It makes no sense, but she prays he destroys the imposter in Lin Feng's body. Slamming the heavy door shut, the Demon King stands alone in the dark chamber. He tells his loyal servants that they are the only ones worthy of seeing his true form. But the beasts do not recognize their master in his human disguise and pounce. The Demon King chuckles, realizing it really has been a long time since he left the tower. With a brutal sweep of his arm, he strikes his disobedient pets. He demands to know if they have already forgotten their ruler. Then he releases a massive, terrifying wave of pure demonic pressure. Now that they feel his dark presence, his identity is clear. He casually sits on a massive demon like a throne as the others tremble and bow. Satisfied with their submission, the king orders them to hunt down Lin Feng. Elsewhere, Lin Feng is running, laughing over his stolen prize. He has sealed a blood contract with the ancient fragment, locking it to his soul. No one can take it from him now, but his celebration is cut short. A wall of high-tier demons blocks his path, waiting in perfect formation. Standing among them is a human figure, wearing a chillingly familiar grin. The Demon King welcomes him, but Lin Fang ignores the greeting entirely. There is no time to plan, he just needs to escape and claim his glory as a hero. But the Demon King has other plans, ordering his servants to shred him to pieces. They must tear the divine fragment from Lin Fang's cold hands. Instantly, a massive demonic ogre and a giant worm lunge at Lin Fang. Drawing his glowing sword, he slices the massive worm in half. Using their heads as stepping stones, he leaps up to escape. A shadow wolf drops from above, but Lin Fang blocks the strike. Watching from safety, the Demon King asks if they are finished playing around. Suddenly, a giant serpent lunges forward and bites deep into Lin Fang's leg. He screams in pain, slicing off the snake's head with a furious strike. But his frantic attacks are useless, more serpents swarm him. With no room to dodge, another massive beast coils around him. In a desperate move, he sprouts his wings to force a quick escape. He barely breaks free, leaving a chunk of his leg behind. Lin Fang screams that he will survive no matter how many monsters they send. He holds the ultimate power now, he is the savior of this world. The Demon King just laughs at the pathetic boast, enjoying the show. He encourages his beasts to keep tearing the intruder apart. The massive ogre catches up, locking its jaw onto Lin Fang's arm. He screams for the beast to let go, thrusting his sword into its skull. But the monster barely even flinches, grabbing the blade with its bare hands. With his weapon trapped, a dragon claws deep into his chest. Refusing to die in this place, he swings his sword with everything he has left, blasting energy in all directions to scatter the demons while burning his final reserves of strength. Lin Fang roared that the exit was close and hope was still alive. Hearing this, the Demon King scoffed and asked what hope even meant before, explaining to Lin Fang that hope was the cruelest form of violence. Meanwhile, Lin Fang was desperately flying toward the exit, needing only a few more steps to fulfill his dream of becoming a hero. But suddenly, that humanoid demon stood waiting for him at the very top. How could he possibly move that fast? A second ago, he was still deep inside the abyss, the Demon King told Lin Fang. There was absolutely no escape. Lin Fang desperately tried to measure his opponent's actual strength, realizing with dread that the monster had only been playing with him. Right at the threshold, the Demon King blasted Lin Fang with a surge of magic, sending him crashing back down, broken and battered. With a deafening crash, Lin Fang landed in the double S-ranked dungeon. Suddenly, the transmigrator inside Lin Fang stepped forward to seize the powerful artifact fragment, but a sudden barrier flared up around Lin Fang to block his hands. The Demon King watched, stunned that the fragment rejected him, and wondered how this was even possible. Looking at Bai Qingfang standing right there, Lin Fang let out a bitter laugh, asking how on earth he had survived, and if he actually came for the fragment. Did he plan to use this power to finally become a hero? Too bad destiny had other plans, because this specific artifact was bound by a blood contract, meaning it had only one true owner. Even if Bai Qingfang ended his life right now, the bond remained unbreakable. Learning about this absolute contract gave the Demon King a massive headache. Then, without warning, the true soul of Lin Fang suddenly reawakened and declared he would not let this impostor get away with using his body for glory. He dragged the fake soul down to hell with him. The Demon King realized that the original soul had surfaced because the transmigrator's hold was slipping. From all his severe injuries, true Lin Fang then began to influence the shard, causing the panicked transmigrator to scream out, demanding to know what he was doing. Lin Fang reminded the transmigrator that they both shared the same bloodline, which meant he had the power to override and cancel the soul contract. Supported by Lin Fang's genuine resolve, the contract shattered and the divine weapon reverted to a completely ownerless state. Furious, the transmigrator called Lin Fang brainless lunatic, screaming about how much blood and sweat it took to secure this priceless treasure. The transmigrator ranted that sealing the Demon King would have brought him endless fame, but his grand plans were ruined by this stubborn original owner. No wonder everyone in this world treated Lin Fang like absolute garbage, who deserved to be put down by the protagonist at the very start. Lin Fang calmly replied that even though the transmigrator possessed knowledge of the novel and held the power of the divine fragment, his soul was far too corrupted. Letting him run wild would only bring a brand new threat of destruction. The innocent, his quest was never about saving the world, only chasing cheap glory. betraying his own allies, while Linfeng fought to suppress the transmigrator. The Demon King quietly pulled the artifact fragment toward himself. After all, this was the exact weapon humanity hoped to seal him with forever, making. It felt pretty strange that they were making a contract. Even the Demon King agreed that things had started to take a very weird turn. The settler begged Bang Fong to spare his life. If he died, the entire Lin family would hunt Bang Fong down for the rest of his days. Most importantly, nobody would believe Bang Fong actually secured the fragment on his own, which meant he would eventually have to return it to them. Then, the settler remembered how his companions had been acting lately. It clicked. Leah and Gao were working with him, and there was definitely something wrong with the medicine he drank. The settler figured that was how that wretched soul managed to reclaim his body. The settler vowed that as soon as they returned, he would slaughter Leah, Gao, and everyone else. But then, suddenly, Linfeng used his physical form one last time to pierce his own neck. The Demon King was absolutely stunned by Linfeng's desperate move and gasped, "What did he just do?" Linfeng reminded the settler that he was far too corrupt, and because of that, he could no longer let him use this body to cause absolute chaos. Settler gasped, asking if that was why he chose death, reminding him that if the body dies, Linfeng would perish too. Linfeng turned to Bang Fong and told him he was entrusting him with the fragment to save this world. The Demon King couldn't believe anyone ever called this guy trash. To him, he showed nothing but real courage and absolute determination. Linfeng admitted he never thought he would actually end up dying alongside his worst enemy, or that a loser like him would get such a heroic death. Bleeding out, the settler choked out that this was impossible, refusing to accept defeat until his very last breath. But the settler never even got a chance to finish as his time expired. And get this, soon the news broke that the association team had successfully recovered a fragment of the divine artifact. Once they secured the remaining pieces, they would finally be able to seal the demonic tower. Thanks to this first piece, humanity actually had hope. The leader of the squad that secured this legendary success, the hero who found it, was Bang Fong, now hailed as humanity's savior. Meanwhile, at the association of the awakened, Lucai bragged to the others about how generous their captain really was. He had gone through hell to find top-tier materials, to brew a powerful refining potion, and handed it over without asking for anything. Gao chimed in, calling their captain the kindest man he had ever met. He had even forgiven the assassin sent to kill him and helped him find the truth instead. Meanwhile, Leah was gushing about how handsome Bang Fong was, joking that half the city probably had a crush on him. Everyone couldn't stop talking about how incredibly amazing Captain Bang Fong was, saying books should be written about him. The entire internet was already going wild over his exploits. Some remembered hearing about a mysterious hidden genius, rumors claiming he was born to be their savior. But behind closed doors, Tiantin told the Demon King that the old chairman had labeled Linfeng a traitor for trying to kill his own teammates multiple times. Because of that, the association erased Linfeng's existence entirely, making Bang Fong the sole leader from day one. And so all the glory belonged to Bai Qingfeng alone. Right now, everyone spread his heroic tale, believing that Bai Qingfeng would become the ultimate savior, destined to one day defeat the Demon King. But the Demon King knew the truth was different. Since all the glory actually belonged to Bai Qingfeng instead, the Demon King was still remembering what Lin Feng had told him before he died. It was quite ironic. Nobody would ever know the name of the real hero, but they would only remember a cruel, hypocritical person like Bai Qingfeng. Meanwhile, Tintin asked her benefactor where he was going. He replied that he needed to repay a precious gift in some way because he absolutely hated being in anyone's debt. Meanwhile, the president of the Awakened Association informed the Great Summoner that the soul she summoned had died inside the body of that worthless trash, Lin Feng. But the Great Summoner told him he had nothing to worry about. She could easily summon as many souls from other worlds. Nobody cares about that useless trash anyway. So everyone will just assume it is for the best if that trash suddenly starts changing. But the president questioned if this was truly fair to the victims whose bodies got possessed. After all, they lose their physical form and even their personality, which is basically no different from murder. But the Great Summoner just laughed, asking why he was always so indecisive when she did this for The sake of world peace, is it really wrong to make minor sacrifices for the greater good? Besides, she argued, if they wanted to talk about fairness, then summoning a soul from another world was already completely unfair, just wrong. All instead of living peacefully in their own world, they suddenly wake up in another, forced to play the hero. Because of this, she and her fellow summoners had come to a brilliant agreement, using the power of prophecy. They write an exciting, passionate novel that makes these foreign souls serve their new world with total devotion. It tricks them into believing they are the chosen saviors, forcing them to serve endlessly. Honestly, that is some next-level manipulation. The summoner asked if it was not wonderful, if one dies they can instantly summon another, endlessly replacing souls. The association president was absolutely shocked by the great prophetess's words, yet he still agreed it was a brilliant plan, but it was a shame the great prophetess was dead and could no longer help write her novels, and even worse, she was about to die. Seeing his true, sinister face, the great summoner instantly realized this was a disguise and demanded to know who he was. In a flash, the Demon King pierced the great summoner's chest, coldly replying that he was just the usual villain of passionate romances. Gasping, the great summoner realized who he was and asked why. The Demon King pulled out the fragment, explaining that a fool had sacrificed himself to give him this incredible shard of a divine artifact, but since he doesn't like being in anyone's debt, he decided to at least avenge the guy. Soon the awakened found the great prophetess dead. Panic instantly gripped the association. Slipping away, the Demon King realized that although he had shard, he had also successfully kept it out of human hands. This meant that even if they gathered the rest, they still could not completely seal the demon tower. He quietly wondered what his next move should. Right now, just return to the tower or face the consequences, but then a secretary rushed over to Baking Fong, handing him a letter she said arrived a few days ago. Baking Fong stared at the envelope, highly surprised and wondering who sent it. Peeling it open, he was instantly taken aback by the massive block of text inside. As he read on, he realized this was no ordinary message. It was a story, a message from Lin Fang, detailing a novel penned by an incredibly powerful summoner and prophet. According to this letter, the Demon King realized the actual hero had not even appeared yet. Lin Fang himself was just an average, nameless extra. The real hero was named Lihai, the destined warrior, prophesied to slay the Demon King before winter's first snowfall. Hearing this, Baking Fong decided he might as well remain with the humans and personally execute this rising genius. Sometime later, a massive beast ambushed a group of seasoned hunters, but one young awakened stepped forward, hitting the creature with a searing bolt of lightning directly to the skull. With that single, crushing strike, the beast collapsed. He casually walked back to his stunned comrades, who could barely believe their eyes. They never expected this quiet rookie to take down a massive sea-tier monster all by himself. Since he did all the work, the loot was his to keep. Shockingly, the young man waved his hand and declined, suggesting they split the crystals among themselves instead. He simply had zero interest in. And honestly, who can blame him? The hunters figured it was just youthful arrogance. An armored hunter stepped up, asking Lihai if he wanted to team up. But Lihai flatly refused, making it clear he worked alone and trusted absolutely nobody. With that, they parted ways, leaving Lihai by himself in the quiet woods. Once alone, Lihai summoned his glowing system screen to claim his kill rewards. This quiet youth is Lihai, hailing from a small, modest town out in the suburbs. Exactly 2 weeks ago, a mysterious system interface first materialized right before his eyes. It sends him daily quests, and completing them grants him legendary power-ups. His latest reward was a massive, tenfold boost to his physical stats. Lihai relentlessly grinds these quests to push his limits and grow stronger. Nearby, the other hunters watched his odd behavior, whispering among themselves in confusion. They noticed Lihai was staring blankly into empty space again, waving his hands about. Only 2 weeks ago, he was a completely different person, quiet, extremely cautious, and incredibly careful. Still, they figured a very bright future lay ahead of him. But like any true protagonist, only Lihai can see the glowing blue panels and track his private quests. It is his ultimate cheat code, but he knows one thing for certain: to survive and get strong, he must stay sharp. There is a massive road ahead, but he truly believes he will claim his ultimate victory. Meanwhile, back at the headquarters, the secretary turned to Baking Fong, remembering His request from 2 weeks ago to track down any clues regarding someone named Lehai. She reported that a hunter matching that exact name had just registered with them. Hearing that his target was finally within reach, Baking Fong demanded an immediate meeting. He casually asked the secretary what season it currently was. She quickly replied that autumn had arrived. Meanwhile, Lehai walked right into the Central Association building, approached the front desk, and announced that he wanted to formally register. But the receptionist apologized, politely explaining that he could not register yet because his official ranking was simply too low. Someone suggested he save his application for later, and that's where Lehai hit his very first roadblock. Honestly, his power was just growing too fast, making things incredibly unstable. But if he failed to join the association, he'd miss out on crucial intel. Without it, things would get pretty rough for his future system quests. But while Lehai was lost in his own head, another awakened hunter approached him and offered a spot on his team, claiming it would boost Lehai's chances of getting into the association. He added that their current mission was to track down a rare artifact fragment, but Lehai bluntly told them that he didn't need a team. As he walked away, he coldly dismissed their entire operation altogether. Still, Lehai knew he couldn't just walk right into the association on his own. He had to play along and join a squad. But he'd need to be incredibly careful from now on. Suddenly, a system notification popped up, promising a massive reward if he successfully joined the association. His mana capacity would shoot up tenfold, but if he declined the quest, it would be gone forever. No do-overs, no second chances. Lehai had known that getting into this guild would be a real headache, but a tenfold boost to his magic power was simply too good to pass up. To everyone else, Lehai looked completely bizarre, just standing there and staring blankly into thin air. But to the Demon King, this was a very familiar sight, because the exact same thing used to happen with Ling Xiao. Meanwhile, another hunter suddenly materialized right in the middle of the bustling city, hailing a cab. The mysterious man ordered the driver to head straight to the Hunter Association. The driver casually asked if he'd heard about the legendary hunter, Baking Feng, who led an elite squad to recover the rare artifact fragment 2 weeks ago. The guy was basically a celebrated hero now, but the passenger cut him off, demanding silence. He was running out of time and needed to step on it. See, this hunter was actually a regressor. He had to alter the timeline right now, otherwise he was going to end up dead by the end of today. He was fated to join the Hunter Guild, but he desperately had to prevent that meeting. He had to stay away from that man, Lehai from the future. His ultimate goal was to stop his past self from provoking the Demon King. Meanwhile, the guild secretary was busy logging the new recruit's personal details. Name Lehai, age 20, a D-rank hunter assigned to Baking Feng's team. With that finished, she warmly welcomed Lehai as an official association member. Instantly, a system alert flashed before Lehai's eyes, confirming his quest was complete. His reward, a massive tenfold increase to his mana pool. Lehai was thrilled. He'd managed to slip into the association and secure a massive power boost. It seemed joining Baking Feng's squad was definitely the right play all along, since his system wouldn't steer him wrong. Suddenly, Lehai's internal mana began to surge wildly, flooding his entire body with an almost overwhelming magical force. In just 2 short weeks, his power had already vaulted past B rank, leaving him wondering if he truly was some legendary chosen one. The secretary watched him in confusion, but Tian explained that Lehai had just unlocked his 2nd tier. No wonder he was celebrating, but Baking Feng interrupted. Bai Jingfeng claimed he just received top-secret information about the next artifact fragment. This meant they had to pack up and leave the dangerous area without a single moment of delay. But the moment Bai Jingfeng stepped outside, an adoring crowd quickly mobbed him. Endless groupies surrounded their beloved hero, squealing and talking over each other in pure, breathless excitement. They gushed over how hard their idol worked for humanity and how deeply he cared for their future. Everyone worried about his safety as he rushed off once again. What surprised them most was his choice to take an inexperienced rookie onto his elite squad. But little did they know, this holy hero was actually the Demon King. He fabricated the secret intel just to lure Lehai into a deserted dungeon and eliminate him. The adoring swarm of crazy fans around them kept growing. They absolutely refused to let their hero leave, desperately crying out and begging him for autographs. The fans worshipped him, viewing Bai Jingfeng as their ultimate protector. Bai Jingfang simply chuckled very warmly, effortlessly putting on a flawless, humble performance to deceive them. Secretly, he just wanted to escape this highly annoying crowd and assassinate Lehai in private. All of this endless crowd interference was severely testing his patience. Soon they reached an abandoned hotel. Bai Jingfang suggested they camp inside the ruined hotel for the night. Gathering everyone around a warm campfire, he took the quiet opportunity to hold a quick team meeting. The captain explained that this place used to be quite beautiful, but constant monster attacks had forced the residents to flee. Warning them about the nearby dungeons, he strictly advised his companions against wandering into the dark alone. They would continue their dangerous march first thing tomorrow morning. He ordered everyone to sleep in the same room. The companions would take turns on night guard duty and must strictly listen to his instructions. Suddenly, Lehai froze in shock as a strange sound echoed. It was the distinct chiming of the system, which was highly unusual at midnight. This was far too early for a standard daily quest, but the prompt ordered him to travel 3 kilometers north. He had to eliminate a rank of beast to earn an S-rank potion. But his current strength was not enough for such a threat. Stepping into a rank, a dungeon was suicide, but then he looked closely at the reward. Staring at the divine prize, his fear and heavy doubt began to fade. Just weeks ago he starved, now an S-rank potion was within reach. Standing up, Lehai calmly looked at the group and said he had to go out. He knew the system only gave him trials to make him grow stronger. Trusting the system completely, he believed that he might actually be a chosen messenger of the gods. Gahu scoffed, asking if he had even listened to the captain. It was suicide out there, but Lehai kept his resolve. He replied that he had extremely urgent personal business and would definitely return by tomorrow morning without fail. To truly become strong, he knew he could not follow the safe crowd. Although he knew the others would criticize him, their judgment did not matter to him at all. Li muttered that the captain should have left that coward behind. But Tine Tian quickly disagreed, sensing Lehai's true talent. She reminded her that the captain himself had noticed Lehai's talent and wished to observe him closely. Liu Shoki sighed, warning that the boy might get killed tonight. They were surrounded by rank dungeons, but the Demon King smiled. He was thrilled Lehai had taken those first steps. The others, they went straight to bed. But he remained, ready to help Lehai resolve everything inside this A-rank dungeon paradox. Once inside, Lehai scanned the dark. He searched for the puppet he had to kill. But while he searched, the creepy puppet slowly lowered itself, directly behind his back. Suddenly it pounced, and trust me, Lehai barely managed to block its heavy blow. The surprise attack failed. The puppet instantly bounced back, resetting for another lethal strike. With just one swift, silent move, the puppet managed to draw blood. It sliced Lehai's arm. He was unarmed, making a weapon his absolute highest priority. Without warning, the puppet rushed forward again, swinging its twin swords with relentless speed. It forced Lehai to back away, leaving him desperate to find any opening. He struck back with all his power. Still, he could not damage the puppet. Meanwhile, a single clever hit from the creature left him feeling weak and defenseless. He was entirely unable to dodge. Worse yet, he had absolutely nowhere left to run. Lehai grimaced. Was the system really testing his patience with this A-rank dungeon? Meanwhile, future Layam slammed his desk in fury, demanding his past self's location. He was positive the secretary had seen his younger self earlier today. But the secretary apologized, revealing hunter locations was strictly forbidden. Layam was furious. This meant the current Lehai had already walked into a trap. He was likely already out on a dangerous mission alongside Ba Jingfeng. He had to hurry, otherwise his past self would die very soon. The foolish boy did not even realize he was walking straight into a setup. But get this, he had no idea who actually ran the system. Meanwhile, inside an abandoned hotel on the outskirts, Ba Jingfeng sat while everyone slept. He played with a small puppet, smiling as he plotted a genius's downfall. That young star had walked into a deadly trap, never to escape alive. With a perfect alibi and zero motive, no one would suspect Ba Jingfeng. The puppet and the system panel were simply tools to construct the perfect trap. The central office asked their lord what the next assignment for Lehai would be. But the Demon King replied coldly, there would be no next task. Tonight would be Lehai's last evening alive. Finally, the Dark Lord was home. After so long, the Demon King was back in his domain, feeling completely rejuvenated. Killing Ling Xiao had left him bored, but now a new hero was rising. The Dark Lord picked up a shattered shard of the system left after that murder. That system was the only reason Ling Xiao had achieved such immense power. It had granted him legendary weapons and top-tier potions whenever he needed them. The system's advice had been incredible. Now, the Demon King held those broken pieces. As he pieced them together, the interface flickered, recognizing him as its new master. The Demon King ordered the system to locate Lehai since its tracking was flawless. Once it found him, it had to bring Lehai directly to his domain. The king commanded the system to offer Lehai much better rewards than before. This would make the boy feel like a chosen god, stopping his constant training. He wanted the fastest results possible. The system immediately accepted the command. It estimated that it would take half a month to deliver Lehai's head. With everything set, the Demon King walked over to his grand, imposing throne. Standing before his seat, he mockingly whispered a quiet greeting to the dead Ling Xiao. The Demon King asked if he was already used to the throne, wanting to know how he felt. He admitted that he used to think all humans would be just like the hero, Ling Xiao. Brave, intelligent, selfless, but after actually visiting the human world, he realized that people like Ling Xiao, who could actually slay demons, were incredibly rare. They were true heroes. It is just a pity that their deaths are always tragic. A tragic end. As he turned to leave, the Demon King suddenly paused. He looked back to tell Ling Xiao that his brother, Lin Fan, had also become a hero. With that, the Demon King left the Demon Tower once again, half a month ago. In a peaceful province inside Lehai village, Li He woke up to a strange sound. Seeing a floating screen, Li He assumed it was a hunger hallucination. A mere hallucination, but then a strange system welcomed him. He was officially the new master of the system, which quickly explained the rules. He would receive powerful rewards simply by completing his daily tasks every single day. The screen asked if he was ready to change his fate and gain ultimate power. Li He was stunned by the sudden offer, but the promise of power gripped him. Driven to get stronger, he immediately threw himself into completing every system quest. He pushed forward. After all, he believed he was the chosen one. Deflecting the puppet's attacks with his bare hands, Li He pushed forward. He shouted that there was no way he would back down, believing in himself. Finally getting his opening, Li He struck, but the puppet was just too fast. The blade impaled Li He, but he desperately clamped down on the cold steel. Clamping down so the puppet was stuck, immediately after, he made his move. He severed the strings. Just like that, the puppet fell. It shocked even the Demon King himself. Unfortunately, his foe was already prepared. He had anticipated this exact scenario and laid an S-rank trap. The Demon King had to admit that Li He was truly worthy of being called a hero. If he had not fallen into this system's trap, he might have achieved greatness. He could have become the next Ling Xiao in 10 years, but it is too late now. Li He was in far too much of a hurry to grow strong, making this his final day. Barely alive, clinging to breath, Li He wondered if it was finally over. Was this not supposed to be over? Yet the system delayed his S-rank potion. Suddenly, a terrifying new figure materialized just a few paces away from him. The stranger drew the puppet's sword as the Demon King asked him what was wrong. He mocked him, asking if he was already preparing his final words for the next life. Li He froze. Who was this monster? His dark power was staggering. The dark energy radiating from his enemy was absolutely staggering, crushing his spirit. No hope. Before Li He could even react, the sword struck. The Demon King struck him down. Meanwhile, back at the Awakened Association headquarters, the startled secretary asked the man why he had returned so suddenly. A future version of Lai, he answered that he needed to place an urgent request. He would pay any price, anything, as long as he got what he needed. He desperately required an awakened hunter with a teleportation skill immediately. He had to return before it was too late. Meanwhile, an elder wondered. If the prophesied Lai, he was growing at an impossibly rapid pace. The president replied that according to the ancient prophecy, Li He had to struggle. It took decades to reach this peak, but then disaster. Immortal Ling Xiao, Prophet Xiao Gang, and the Great Summoner all perished. One after another they fell, leaving only 4 of the 7 elders to defend humanity. A remaining elder actually chuckles, totally unbothered by the crisis. He sneers that absolutely anyone is fit to replace the head of their order now. Prophet Xiao Gang failed to predict his own doom, and the summoner brought only ruin. The elder casually tells the president not to worry about it, completely confident in the future. If Lehai is indeed the true chosen one, he will survive easily. After all, he is giving him a chance. The president asks a question, asking if he intends to resurrect Lehai, but the old elder quickly shuts that down. That would mean two Lehais coexisting in this single timeline. Since their incredible abilities are linked, the ultimate future remains a complete mystery to them. Meanwhile, the Demon King strikes at the fallen Lehai, who barely rolls away. Realizing he stands zero chance against this beast, Lehai decides to run. He instantly bolts to escape, but the terrifying Demon King is already right on his heels. Catching up effortlessly, the Dark Lord leaps forward to crush his prey. The entire stone platform immediately shatters into tiny, useless splinters. Lehai gasps in absolute shock, knowing he barely avoided what would have been a lethal hit. But a second later, he notices the enemy was not even targeting him. Demon King is systematically smashing every single escape path around them. Within seconds, Lehai is forced to halt because every other stone ledge has completely crumbled. He has absolutely nowhere left to run, trapped in the monster's deadly grip. All it takes is destroying his final foothold to finish him off once and for all. Suddenly, a cold blade pierces right through Lehai. The Demon King mocks him. He sneers that Lehai was deeply mistaken to think his tactics were just a game. Breaking the platform would not kill him, thanks to his special passive traits. Perhaps he can fly, and running was just a clever distraction all along. Either way, the vicious monster declares that he prefers to end his opponent's life personally. The Demon King assumes Lehai's heart is on the right side, aiming there. But to be safe, he decides he will simply crush Lehai's skull instead. Lehai knows this is the absolute end, realizing his broken body cannot take any more. With his heart pierced, he cannot even muster the strength to stand. Squeezing his eyes shut, the young hero wonders if he truly deserves this sudden, cruel end. Perhaps his rapid growth is to blame, but wait, something unexpected happens. Opening his eyes, he is shocked to see the giant blade frozen right in midair. Meanwhile, Leah rushes over to Captain Bangfeng, interrupting him with urgent news. She reports that they have received critical intelligence regarding a legendary artifact. A powerful fragment of the relic has just been discovered inside a nearby double S-rank dungeon. Back on the battlefield, the monster that almost killed Lehai suddenly vanishes, leaving Lehai utterly bewildered, completely exhausted, and collapsed on the cold ground. He desperately needs some rest. Meanwhile, Lu Shoki is absolutely thrilled by the latest update, agreeing to hunt down the fragment first thing tomorrow morning, but the Demon King had planned for this exact moment, knowing the ancient fragment was discovered just in time. Because the dangerous double S-rank dungeon will surely serve as Lehai's grave. Finally, a secretary reports to her master that they found a promising hunter. He asked where exactly he wanted to go using his teleportation ability. This future Le slammed his hand on the counter, demanding to go to the double S-rank dungeon. Located in the southeast, that is where the artifact fragment is hidden and where he tragically died in his past life, but this time he is not only going to defeat the Demon Lord, but also claim the artifact. The next day, Leha thought deeply about what had happened that night. He was frustrated that his last task was so difficult, almost getting him killed because he is still way too weak and needs to get stronger as fast as possible. Suddenly, a new notification popped up in front of Lehai. For completing the task, he receives a random S-rank potion as a reward, followed by a prompt for his next task. Feeling the rising difficulty, Lehai realized he needs to proceed with caution and that the upcoming mission will not be easy either. Last night, he almost died, so Lehai considered abandoning the system assignment, but his strong desire to grow stronger pushed him forward. Suddenly, multiple system screens began appearing in front of Lehai, offering him 100 mana units, 100 vitality points, an S-rank potion, a special weapon, and even a secret treasure map for the quest. The system praised him as a true son of heaven and an absolute genius. Therefore, he is destined for greatness, and it strongly recommended him to accept this task, after which the system continued to offer even more valuable rewards. Lehai was completely blown away by how much the system wanted to give him, and he eagerly accepted, since this would definitely allow him to become the strongest. Lehai wondered if it was really that simple, needing no hard training, fearing no trouble, and slowly accumulating power. Maybe his past caution was completely unnecessary. Without hesitating, Lehai accepted the system quest, realizing that hard work and the long path of Cultivation are only meant for weaklings. True genius is simply use their brains and go with the flow as the ultimate son of heaven. As soon as Lehai stepped outside, Tyne met him and said to get ready, because they are heading to a nearby double S-rank dungeon soon. Traces of the fragment were found inside, but Lehai slapped her hand away, declaring he will not tag along anymore since he has his own business to handle. Tyne quickly blocked Lehai, explaining that she only wants what is best for him. After all, they are teammates and he must obey the captain's orders, but Lehai told Tyne to stay out of his business and shoved her aside with his shoulder. Gu angrily demanded how he dared touch Tyne, threatening to teach this arrogant guy a personal lesson. Lehai turned to the system and it instantly understood his desires right away. Warning appeared before Lehai, stating the system aims to create an honest and obedient son of heaven and highly condemns offensive actions against girls. After that, the system issued an emergency quest to immediately apologize to his comrades, especially to the girl. The reward is an S-rank weapon, but if he refuses, his system access will be completely suspended. Lehai was shocked to get an S-rank weapon for something so simple, but he was not pleased with the threat of being suspended if he refused. Lehai was puzzled by what the system was planning, since all he did was insult them. He was already facing disqualification. This task was just too humiliating. The Demon King smirked, highly amused watching Lehai struggle with his choice. Meanwhile, Tianxin's comrades demanded that Lehai apologize right then and there. Li even threatened to take care of him herself if he refused. Left with no other option, Lehai dropped directly to his knees. Bowing deeply before Tianxin, he began shouting about how wrong he was. He repeatedly slammed his forehead against the dirt, leaving everyone stunned. Lu Xiaoi joked that things escalated way too fast for him to intervene. Li wondered if Lehai cracked his skull, while Tianxin begged him to stop. Once the job was done, Lehai bolted to hide his face. He screamed in absolute agony, never having felt this humiliated in his life. Li just laughed, telling Tianxin to ignore that complete freak. Tianxin smiled, saying she was not going to hold a grudge. Seeing her laugh, the Demon King smiled. Next stop, an S-rank dungeon. Known as the Mirror of Rebirth, Lehai finally made it inside. This is where he will secure the weapon fragment to destroy the Demon King. Grabbing it first means total victory, ensuring his own survival. For more than a century, not a single soul has conquered this trial. It is not because of bloodthirsty beasts, either, it is the rules. Anyone entering is immediately confronted by an identical copy of themselves. The only path forward is to murder your own doppelganger. Yet nobody has ever survived a fight against their own perfect clone. Fortunately, the mirror can only duplicate a person exactly as they are in the present. As a traveler from the future, Lehai is completely immune to this limitation. Only his future self can destroy his past self. Lehai leaped forward to strike. He immediately went after the original, already knowing every single move. On top of that, he brought specialized gear tailored specifically for this fight. Lethal weapons crackling with thunder and lightning, knowing his own habits perfectly. Lehai predicted exactly when the clone would try to dodge. He slipped behind and drove his blade deep into its chest. The doppelganger shattered into countless pieces. After all, a fake is just a fake. He is the true chosen one, and now he stands alone as the conqueror. Lehai stepped back to the mirror, watching as it cracked down the middle. Out slipped the glowing fragment of the divine artifact. In that moment, Lehai smiled. Even without some fancy system, he truly was the golden child of destiny. He is destined to become a legendary hero and put down that monster once and for all. His ultimate revenge will be glorious. Without hesitation, Lehai slotted the fragment into his sword. He spun around toward the entrance. Time was up and his target was arriving. Stepping inside, the Demon King immediately picked up on a sinister vibe. Spotting Lehai holding the powerful fragment, the king demanded to know what was happening. Before the question could finish, Lehai closed the distance in a flash. He knew that dealing with a powerhouse required absolute ruthless speed. Catching the beast completely off guard, Lehai plunged his weapon deep into its chest. He roared in triumph, declaring that the legendary ruler was finally finished. Just as the future Lehai dealt the lethal blow. Suddenly, the Demon King's illusion begins to fade away, revealing something unexpected underneath. Hidden beneath the disguise is the real Lehai. Drawing his blade, the future Lehai stands frozen. He desperately tries to figure out how things could have turned out this way. Where did this younger version of himself come from, and why did he kill him? A shout echoes, and Baking Fong's team is shocked to see two identical men. Charging ahead, Li quickly warns everyone that this dungeon is known for copying people. It forces adventurers to face clones of themselves, which makes Gu realize what happened. He figures Lehai already fought his own duplicate, but which one is actually real? Tian spots the weapon in the dead man's hand and realizes it matches Lehai's current gear. Even the clothes are identical, indicating that the true Lehai is the one lying dead. Meanwhile, this second Lehai holds an artifact fragment only a boss monster should carry. Pointing at the survivor, Liu Xiao screams that this fake must be a monster in disguise. He urges the group to strike him down before Lehai can even try to explain. Insisting he is not a monster, he is suddenly cut off as Liu Xiao closes in with a poisoned blade. Right after, Lehai gets blasted by a sudden barrage of ice magic from Gu. The future Lehai quickly realizes he cannot take them all on at the same time. There are simply too many of them, and his artifact attacks will barely scratch humans. Since those attacks are harmless to players, he is at a massive disadvantage here. Under Gu's cover, Li manages to jump right onto Lehai's back. She strikes him with a whip, but he manages to deflect her aggressive assault. He manages to defend himself, but honestly, his survival options are rapidly running out. None of this makes sense. Why did he end up killing his own past self? And how did he even get here, wearing the disguise of a powerful demon lord? It is deeply frustrating. Yesterday's brutal quest had nearly claimed his life. This brutal task served as a harsh reminder of his current weakness. At least finishing that quest earned him a rare, highly valuable transformation potion. It could save his life when things get desperate. Then, a system alert suddenly flashes. The system orders him to head directly inside the Mirror of Rebirth dungeon. Once inside, the rules state that an exact replica of himself will immediately spawn. By defeating this replica, he can finally claim the powerful artifact he needs. To make it easier, the system suggests drinking a potion to mimic Baking Fong. Fighting a replica of Baking Fong would be far less dangerous than fighting himself. He is also strictly warned to keep this entire plan a secret. Stepping into the dungeon, Lehai is filled with doubts about the system's instructions. The alert was brief, leaving him to wonder if this crazy plan can actually succeed. Suddenly, he spots a clone close by, realizing the system might have made a mistake. The duplicate is already there, meaning the potion was offered way too late. Looking closely, Lehai wonders why the replica has so many deep facial scars. This physical detail suggests something is deeply wrong with this copy. And why does this duplicate possess the artifact fragment usually held by a boss? Before he can move, the clone plunges a blade deep into his chest. The clone looks satisfied, declaring that he has finally slain the Demon King. Bleeding out, Lehai is utterly confused by the copy calling him a demon lord. He feels life slipping away, wondering how things went downhill so quickly. It makes no sense, especially since he followed the system's rules perfectly. He recalled the system claiming he was the chosen son of heaven. Still, Lehai could only question everything. Where exactly did he stumble? At the same time, the future version of Lehai, caught in the blistering heat of Tianqin's flames, was desperately trying to calculate what he had done wrong and why this reality was so fundamentally different from his previous life. Back then, everything had unfolded in a completely different way. In that past timeline, he was never supposed to reincarnate as a demon lord. He was never alone in that dungeon. Ever since returning 3 days ago, he had been incredibly careful not to disrupt the original flow of history. He even teleported straight into the dungeon to avoid contacting a single soul. So why were things completely different while the squad clashed with Lehai? Bangfeng himself arrived, only to be told he was too late and that the dungeon boss wasn't even that strong. Unfortunately, the target had managed to kill Lehai. Bangfeng hoisted Lehai off the ground, and the defeated copy immediately began screaming that the man standing in front of him was a demon lord who must be killed immediately. Hearing this, Bangfeng's comrades simply laughed at the wild ravings of this monster, while Tianqin glared down at him with a dark look. Tianqin figured this fake copy's brain was too small, claiming Lehai wasn't himself. While calling their captain a demon lord, it was honestly pretty hilarious, but the most important thing was that they finally secured another precious artifact fragment. This dungeon proved far easier than the last one and the fake copy. was completely inferior to Lehai's true B-rank strength. Bangfang reminded them that it was merely a replica, an idiot who shouldn't even exist in this world. Hearing this, Lehai wondered what the Demon Lord meant. Did he actually understand his true identity? The Demon Lord then asked Lehai if he truly believed he was the sole chosen son of heaven. Did he really think he was the only one who had traveled back in time? Moments earlier, Bangfeng had asked Lehai if he wanted to join his squad, explaining their mission to collect the artifact fragments and offering to help him enter their elite organization. And, more importantly, they had just secured confidential intel on the location of the next fragment, with their business wrapped up for now within the organization of the Awakened Ones. The Demon Lord told Tianchen he would head back to his quarters, ordering him to notify him once everyone was ready. Stepping into his quarters, the Demon Lord let out a heavy yawn, muttering about his long day searching for artifacts like he was some kind of hero. But the moment he opened his eyes, an icy shiver ran down his spine. Waiting right in front of him was none other than his own double. Talk about a mind-bending twist. Staring back at him, the entity calmly greeted his alternate self from this world. Lehai stood completely frozen, suddenly realizing that he had played right into their hands. Bangfeng struck Lehai down and ordered Gahu to strike immediately, prompting Gahu to shatter the fake ice with a swift sweep of his hand. Once again, staring at his other self, the future Lehai muttered that he was meant to be a hero. Pulling out the second fragment, Tianchen presented it proudly to her captain, declaring that their mission was finally complete. Lu Xiaoqi thanked her, praising Tianchen for her efforts, though she quickly insisted that without their captain they never would have succeeded. Bangfeng then turned to his crew. He knew he had to keep the artifact. Inwardly, he was thrilled about how things turned out. After all, the situation was incredibly dangerous, with all enemies wiped out. Bai Qingfang ordered his squad to return to the city. Alone in the tower, Bai Qingfang told himself that to safely hide the fragment, he needed a spot completely out of human reach. The ultimate hiding spot was the tower itself. Right then, the Demon King asked his future self to guard the two fragments, warning him never to remove them. Then he asked how he could avoid getting stabbed in the chest later. His future self explained that in 2 months, winter would arrive with falling snow. Right around that time, a legendary hero named Wang Wang would appear and deliver a near-fatal blow using the power of the artifact fragments. Clinging to life, barely hanging on, but he managed to survive long enough to escape back into the past. Hearing this, the current Demon King knew he had a safe window for the next 2 months. Still, he wondered about his future self's fate. How could anyone survive such a gruesome wound? Survival seemed impossible. His future self, however, only chuckled at him, pointing out how strange it felt to speak to his younger, much weaker self. He then reminded him that he had stayed away from the tower for months. More than 3 months, totally gone. He asked if he had forgotten. Remember, inside the tower, the Demon King gains a passive blood healing ability. And as long as he sits inside this tower, killing him is literally impossible. The current Demon King laughed, asking if he was supposed to hide away, like some helpless fairy tale princess trapped forever inside a locked high castle. His future self admitted it sounded pretty miserable, but they had no other choice. The older version then issued a stern warning about the 7 elders who were rapidly growing their powers. Ignoring them, that would only lead to absolute disaster down the road. We are talking about an immortal, a prophet, a soul-summoning caster, and a time-traveling elder. The history of this world has already shifted, and even he cannot predict what kind of chaos is waiting for them next. Still, the young Demon King figured Wang Wang would only arrive in 2 months, leaving him plenty of time to relax. Besides, he reminded his older self that he had already spent 3 months in this world, hunting down fragments without a break. He was exhausted, totally spent. On top of that, he spent this time analyzing his enemies, their special abilities, and their daily routines. This strategic knowledge would give him a massive advantage when the time came. His future self scoffed at his attitude, asking if he was getting way too overconfident. He had been locked away for years, so this carefree attitude was frustrating. But the younger version did not care at all about his complaints. He casually announced his plans for a vacation, and honestly, can you blame him? Infuriated his future self. Meanwhile, on the news, the anchor With this victory, the ceiling of the tower was finally within reach. Humanity was suddenly filled with a newfound sense of hope, and crowds gathered, celebrating the incredible news. But in the shadows, nobody noticed the rustling bushes. Out stepped a mysterious red-haired boy, looking around with a curious gaze. It was exactly what the city looked like 20 years ago, crowded with countless normal people. Taking a deep breath of the incredibly fresh air, the boy looked up at the sky. Pure blue, drifting clouds, and best of all, a warm sun shining down on him. It looked exactly like the illustrations in his books. Then, a massive blob materialized. Floating close, the creature advised 13 to treasure this rare, divine opportunity, reminding him that the high gods are always watching, so he must not fail. That meant locating the artifact fragments. 13 immediately promised he would get it done. Right after, a glowing chat window materialized right in front of his face. The god of truth, M77, marveled at the ancient 20-year-old city views. Meanwhile, the cancer god pointed out the sheer number of living animals wandering the streets. Next, the wind god loved the interface, praising its 20 different streaming channels. The Lord of Hell chimed in, asking if this was a combat stream and where the feed came from. Interestingly, the entity named 3 billion years ago noticed something strange. There were absolutely no demons nearby. Even the center of the universe grew anxious, demanding to know when the hunt would begin. Eager to find the missing fragment, 13 suddenly leaped out of a nearby bush. He shouted at them to relax because he was finally living in a peaceful era. This meant his very first priority was to properly explore and understand this new world. Naturally, his first stop was a local coffee shop, where he immediately ordered a drink. Eyes sparkling with genuine curiosity, he stared at the legendary beverage mentioned in old books. The waitress felt bad for the red-haired kid, offering him a sweet discount. 13 muttered that despite his mission, trying this coffee was a must. Little did he realize, the terrifying Demon King was sitting just a few feet away. Taking their first sips, both 13 and the Demon King instantly sprayed it everywhere. Coughing violently, they screamed about the intense bitterness. The Demon King questioned human sanity. How did ancient humans from 1,000 years ago consume such absolute poison? 13 wondered. Why did people 20 years back enjoy something that tasted worse than heavy medicine? Sighing heavily, the poor waitress realized she now had two complete freaks in her shop. Shrugging it off, 13 headed to a movie theater, opting for a terrifying horror film. On screen, a pale, snarling ghost girl slowly crawled directly out of a television set. While the audience screamed and sobbed, neither the Demon King nor 13 felt any fear. 13 realized it made total sense why their peaceful era collapsed into ruins later on. Humans from 20 years ago were just incredibly fragile, easily terrified by fictional monsters. The Demon King was unimpressed, finding humans just as weak as a millennium ago. Their soft lives made no sense to him. Leaving the theater, 13 found a local festival. Spotting a dart-throwing game, he stepped up to show off his superhuman aim. Every single throw hit the dead center of the bullseye, with absolute robotic precision. The stall owner watched in pure shock as the red-haired kid hit 40 bullseyes in a row. Shaking with excitement, the owner cheered him on and told him to claim his grand prize. He shouted that the kid was about to completely shatter the local high score. Believing 13 was no normal civilian, he figured the kid was a licensed awakened. 13 was genuinely baffled. This was his very first time winning rewards without spilling blood. Just then, another ridiculous challenger stepped up to the line. The Demon King unleashed his darts, instantly crushing the record and leaving everyone speechless. Though he won, he just stared blankly at the plastic toy, wondering what its value was. While the surrounding crowd cheered wildly, a strange rivalry sparked between the two powerful warriors. Getting hit on by girls and having fun, the Demon King and 13 must admit one thing. This world from 20,000 years ago is actually pretty interesting. The zoo is right in the center of town, where a worker tries to drag 13 away. The worker demands he stop letting the animals go, but 13 simply cannot understand why. He shouts about justice, arguing that all these wild creatures deserve to live free. The stressed employee tries to explain the reality to their strange visitor. He explains that zoos exist to protect rare species from completely going extinct. Meanwhile, another keeper is already struggling to pull Bai Bingfeng away. This worker insists they take excellent care of the beasts, providing them top-notch treatment. He claims their feed and medicine are premium, but Bai Bingfeng won't back down. He demands to know the difference between these caged beasts and a trapped princess. Shortly after, the main show begins, featuring the star attraction of the entire park. It is Lan the dolphin, leaping gracefully through a blazing ring of fire. The audience watches in absolute awe, and the excited kids crowd forward for a closer look. But suddenly, 13 ruins the vibe. He calls everyone around him actual demons. He warns everyone it is dangerous, and Bai Bingfeng is equally outraged by them. He demands to know why they are torturing the dolphin for their own amusement. How can they have the conscience to sit there and say they enjoy watching this? He points out they might as well just eat it, because even the Demon King is not this cruel. 13 and Bai Bingfeng continue making a scene, shouting that there is nothing good about this show. Since they are ruining the audience's fun, the security guards decide to step in. The heavy guards simply throw them out, just like that. Bai Bingfeng grumbles that this modern zoo is an incredibly strange place. Looking at him, 13 suddenly recognizes his companion, a perfect match. He excitedly tells Bai Bingfeng that he recognizes him from the legendary history books. The kid treats him like a living deity. Bai Bingfeng is completely stunned. After all, he has only managed to find 2 fragments of the ancient artifact. 13 is so overwhelmed by this fateful meeting that he actually bows at Bai Bingfeng's feet. He begs him to let them team up and hunt for the remaining pieces together. Right then, a system notification pops up, alert. The system warns him that this kid also has an invisible interface, but theirs is far more advanced. Meanwhile, the watching gods begin debating what to do with the Demon King. Some of them even start offering massive payouts for finding the lost fragments. The Twin God and the Fire God are especially eager to pit 13 against him to test his power. 13 notices that the deities seem to love the Demon King, giving him an idea. He decides he must join him, so 13 tells the Demon King some vital information. He knows exactly where the next artifact fragment is hidden, jackpot. Hearing about the fragment, the Demon King immediately agrees to take him along. He grabs him by the hand, leaving 13 completely stunned that he did not ask any questions. But the leader simply shrugs, explaining that it is really not a big deal. Besides, he adds, it is not like he actually said he believed the boy's story. Even so, 13 is just happy to work together and hopes they find the fragment soon. This kid's real name is actually Lucian, simple. But his last name is irrelevant, only his number truly matters here. He was born 2 years after the war, right around the time the Demon King was fatally wounded. Within 2 months, the fragile balance between humans and demons would completely shatter. War was imminent as demons broke free of control and flooded into the human world. Almost overnight, the entire planet was transformed into a chaotic, blood-soaked battlefield. For the next 5 years, words like doom, war, and survival completely replaced peaceful bedtime stories. Replaced childhood stories, but this clash, it was entirely expected. Humans soon discovered that, while demons are not exactly easy to kill, they can at least be slowed down using money, weapons, and materials. In the end, greedy humans actually turned out to be far more terrifying than any vicious demon. Some say the demon race was born from the darkest of human emotions. But absolutely no one could have predicted the massive event coming 5 years later. That year, Lian was only 3. Then, a literal god descended. Tired of the constant wars on Earth, this deity finally decided to step in. This god was a supreme, multidimensional being ruling over all life and creation. Instantly, their home planet was turned into a massive arena for live entertainment. Now humans were forced to slaughter each other just to amuse the gods. The bizarre creature congratulated 13 for ruthlessly eliminating 99 other players. He had claimed first place, and his reward was 1,000 system coins. In total, he had accumulated 5,032 coins. He could spend this wealth to upgrade his equipment, skills, and stats. Broadcast rules were brutal. He was forced into constant survival matches. He fought monsters, vicious beasts, and even dark reflections of his own self. Humans became mere toys, and honestly, the sheer cruelty of it is sickening. Years passed, the planet's native population was almost completely wiped out. When the Demon King finally fell, only 1/10 of humanity remained. Forests withered, wildlife died, and 99% of the planet's water and soil turned toxic. Yet the gods kept feeding them, keeping the remaining survivors trapped in cages. They lived like zoo animals, dragged out only when it was time to fight. Since the wilderness was uninhabitable, these cages became their only shelter. The captives were given basic rations. When Lu Shaosan turned 10, he was assigned his number 13, living in Park 12, Cage 48. Branded as the war generation, these children were born directly into slavery. The gods demanded entertainment, so humanity had to put on a constant show. No choice, they had to put on a show or die right there. The world had devolved into a futuristic Rome where slaves fought for divine favor. They battled vicious beasts just to earn the approval of their masters. Every new generation focused on a single, grim goal, learning how to kill. Because Player 13 was incredibly strong, the gods showered him with system coins. They watched in awe, could this kid actually become the absolute strongest? The twin gods proposed throwing him against the ancient demon king, Legion. Was more than happy to bask in their favor, successfully becoming their top star player. Thanks to his rising fame, the moment he turned 18, he crossed paths with an elder. This mysterious old man possessed the incredible ability to travel back through time. As an ex-member of the Awakened Association, he handed 13 a shocking mission. He must travel 20 years into the past to locate a divine artifact fragment. Gathering these pieces was their only chance to finally claim their absolute freedom. Decades into the future, Lu Xian wanted to travel back to stop humans and demons from clashing. He was going to go back 20 years and start a live broadcast, all because 20 years ago, the world was still prosperous and the human population was massive. God needed countless slaves for his show, and while he wanted to save as many people as possible, rather than letting 100,000 souls perish in a war, he would let them become slaves because at least they survive. Before he returned, the elder pointed out that since everyone was dead in the future, why not at least try to save them in the past? Why not ignore that? Live stream entirely and change the past so they never have to serve the gods. After all, it was better to fight the demon king than to struggle against an entire wave of absolute evil. 13 told the demon king he was honored to search for the fragments, admitting he had heard stories of him since his own childhood. Lu Xian found this era much more comfortable than his dark future, even thinking about changing history. But could a caged lion ever truly resist its master? The demon king invited the newcomer to his home, offering to introduce him to the rest of the team, but Lu Xian was completely caught off guard, asking what home even was. The demon king remarked he was barely human at all. In the future, 20 years from now, humanity has completely forgotten the meaning of the words home and hope, no way back, nowhere to go. Sometime later, 13 arrived at the headquarters of the Awakened Association, declaring that the God of Truth was now extremely powerful. 77 watched quietly, noting that human civilization was truly magnificent. But then the Guardian of the Galaxy pointed out that they were the very ones who had ruined it. The gods were already eager for the clash between humanity and the Demon King, wishing they had arrived 20 years earlier. At that very moment, the Demon King received a sudden notification from his system, which was actively trying to hack into Lu Xian's own setup. And the progress bar had already reached 10%. The Demon King remarked that the system was right, confirming that Lu Xian possessed his own system. The system praised the Lord for being so smart, but the Demon King quickly corrected it, claiming he was simply wise and humble. Then he suggested they watch Lu Xian, who was frantically gesturing at empty air, making it obvious to anyone that something was wrong, very wrong. The system pointed out that she was not even human. Looking at this, the secretary quietly agreed, noticing how the illness left by Li was already spreading to Baking and the young man beside him. Soon, Baking and the youth began muttering to themselves. Registration complete. Baking took him over to meet the team, assuring him they were good people who would easily become his friends. Lu Xian was pleasantly surprised that the Demon King actually praised others. The moment the team saw Lu Xian, they warmly welcomed the newcomer. Lu Xian smiled, noting how nice it was to feel at home. Liashoki had not expected a new recruit so soon. Gahu grumbled that this guy seemed just as strange as the last one. Liaya just laughed, telling Lu Xian that this was nothing like home. It was basically a sweatshop for underpaid workers. Gather, meaning it can't really be called a home. Real houses are just so much warmer and cozier. Luciuson just chuckles and admits he feels incredibly comfortable here too. After all, this cozy place is way warmer than his actual life. Tiantin welcomes the newcomer to the team, asking what he did in the past. She mentions how important it is for everyone to live warmly and dress well and never go hungry. To her, that is what makes a happy life. Luciuson quietly ponders Tian's words about having food and warm clothes every day. In the future, God provided food and shelter, so they should be grateful. Thinking back to his own past, Luciuson speaks up. He tells Tian that he actually already has a place to call home. Remembering his tower in the future, the Demon King wonders if he truly has a home. Tian smiles, saying it is wonderful if everyone has a home to go back to. Then she asks if he was always alone, or if he ever had teammates. At the mention of comrades, Luciuson is dragged back into his dark memories. One brutal trial actually forced them to kill their own teammates. Only he survived, the mysterious number 13 from Park 12, Cell 48. Luciuson snaps out of it, telling Tian he used to have many comrades. Remembering his future self and the demons, he wonders if they count as comrades. Gaohu chimes in, saying they trust Luciuson because their captain brought him along. As long as they chase the same goal, they are teammates. Gaohu proudly declares that they will become the ultimate hope of humanity. Luciuson strikes a dramatic pose, loudly proclaiming his eternal gratitude to the gods. He vows to give them everything, hoping they arrive on this planet very soon. That way, more people can be saved and become beloved by the gods. A nice lie, but get this, the Demon King has other plans. He plans to collect 10 artifact fragments, become invincible, and wipe out humanity. Obviously, the Demon King decided it was best not to share that in public. Members of the Bingfang team join hands, wishing each other good luck. They vow to put everything on the line to retrieve the third fragment. The double S-rank dungeon is an endless, massive maze choked with darkness. Somewhere deep inside this confusing labyrinth lies the third artifact fragment. It is a chaotic layout, highly reminiscent of the Mirror Dungeon. Just like that double S-rank zone, there are incredibly strict rules here. The top floor of the Demon Tower operates under similar laws, granting its ruler immense power. That supreme demon possesses a fierce bloodlock and limitless magical reserves. Luciuson points out that the third fragment he read about is right here. To actually grab it, they first have to survive this lethal maze. But brace yourselves, because a massive surprise catches even Luciuson off guard. He did not expect to see this massive crowd of hunters gathered here. With nearly 100 different entrances, hundreds of teams can participate at once. 2 days ago, news broadcasts leaked the exact location of the fragment. Immediately after that announcement, every single awakened warrior went completely wild. Now every hunter on the scene is desperate to claim the treasure. They are charging in blind, despite knowing how incredibly dangerous this is. Most of these teams are going to die inside this double S-rank hell. Everyone instantly noticed when one of the strongest guild teams, led by Bang Fong, marched right up to the maze. Crowds swarmed them immediately, begging for signatures and photos. With the legend himself, Lucian clutched his head in absolute despair. He had no possible way of understanding where this kind of massive information leak came from. His only real trump card was pointing out the artifact, which now meant nothing. Meanwhile, excited female hunters from rival teams were already lining up to take selfies with their savior. Seeing Lucian looking completely devastated, the Demon King grabbed him by the shoulder, telling him not to sweat the details because joining their crew meant he was one of them forever. He was a teammate to the very end. Together they could handle anything. Lucian could not hold back his tears, overwhelmed with pure relief. He told the Demon King how truly grateful he was, promising to give his absolute all even though he was just number 13. The Demon King smiled, thrilled with how easily he fooled this naive little kid, before casually waving for the rest of his team to head inside. Every other party had chosen an entrance, meaning they had to move. Sensing how desperately the Demon King was rushing, Lucian anxiously yelled to ask where they were even going. And shouldn't they carefully plan their route, instead of just running in blindly? What would happen if they ended up hopelessly trapped in a dead end? The Demon King told Lucian to just shut up and stop overthinking every little detail. Strangely enough, next to the Demon King, Lucian felt a quiet comfort wash over him. He wondered if this strange, magnetic aura was why the others trusted their leader so completely. Soon, they came to a sudden fork, prompting Tian to wonder where they should head next, while Liu Zioki noticed dark warning rules carved onto a stone slab. It read, "Kill your teammates, and only then can the lone survivor proceed." Every single path here is correct. Deep down, Lucian felt a dark, sudden, terrifying surge of joy. This first trial ruined everything. Once again, he was being forced to slay his own allies. Worst of all, the deadly dungeon rules were already in full effect. Grim magical spells locked them down completely. Even so, Lucian refused to throw in the towel. If they did not find a way out in time, they could remain trapped here forever. Did they truly have to kill each other? Gahu laughed it off, casually saying these were just the typical standard rules for this dungeon. In fact, killing teammates sounded way too cliché. Lucian watched them, utterly baffled. Why was everyone just casually chatting with one another? Did they not see how absolutely desperate and dangerous their situation was? But Lucian quickly shoved those frantic thoughts aside because Tiantin suddenly moved. She slowly raised her hand, keeping her cold, sharp eyes locked directly onto Liu Zhaoqi. A preemptive strike was coming. Their relaxed smiles were just a total lie. Talk about a deadly game of mind chess. They were just trying to lower guards. Lucian watched in absolute terror as Tian's hand lunged. But then she just let out a massive, sleepy yawn. She complained about being exhausted, begging to finish this dungeon quickly so she could sleep. Plus, her freshly baked cookies were still waiting at home. Lucian stared in utter disbelief. Did she genuinely not grasp the mortal danger? Right at that moment, Liu Zhaoqi quietly slipped his hand deep into his back pocket. Lucian tensed up, bracing for the inevitable blade he was about to draw. Luciusin was about to draw his sword to strike Tanshin, but held back. Instead, Tanshin simply pulled out a carton of milk, asking Uncle Gu to use a spell to turn it into ice cream. A completely stunned Luciusin wondered who wastes an S-rank skill on dessert, especially when their lives are on the line. But things only got weirder. Even in peaceful times, nobody should be this relaxed. Yet Uncle Gu actually shaped the ice cream to look like the demon king. Luciusin clutched his head in disbelief, wondering why he was the only one caring about the rules. Did these people actually trust each other that much? Or was there some other reason? Noticing how much the younger comrade was sweating, Liu Zhaoqi offered him some ice cream, assuming Luciusin was unwell from the intense heat, and told him not to worry since winter was coming soon. Surprised by this kind gift, Luciusin thanked Liu Zhaoqi and admitted he was actually pouring cold sweat from sheer terror. But as it turned out, these people were genuinely good and treated him so well. Luciusin was deeply unwilling to kill them, realizing they were lingering around. The Demon King snapped that they were not on a casual stroll, ordering them to get ready because they had to secure the fragment. Things were moving too fast, and so Luciusin urgently begged them to wait and at least come up with some plan. He really did not want to kill them. He was in a great era with fantastic teammates and he did not want them to die, so he suggested finding another way, but the Demon King scoffed that there was absolutely no need to do that, raising a single hand crackling with devastating magical energy. Just as the rules dictated, a massive blow was landed, and the obelisk began to crumble. Luciusin struggled to understand what the Demon King was trying to do. A blinding flash of light blocked his vision, but as the intense glare finally began to clear, Luciusin witnessed something impossible. The laws were shattered, and the gateway lay open. The Demon King scoffed, asking who even follows such childish rules when breaking them is easier and far more exciting. Now Luciusin desperately needed some quiet time to think things through. The Demon King had shattered the sacred rules right before his very eyes, crossing a line he thought was absolute. As he slowly processed this, he started to wonder why he even had to follow those rules. Was he born just for this? For as long as Luciusin could remember, he lived in servitude to a god. The laws were simple: execute your family, murder your own allies, or challenge the Demon King. It was all a twisted show. 3 hours of relentless combat meant solely to amuse the god, and if a rebels stepped out of line, they were executed. The gods loved watching mortals slaughter their loved ones and fight hopeless battles, and humanity kept performing like captive dolphins, constantly trying to please them. They were forced to leap through a flaming hoop, and Luciusin had always obeyed. It never once occurred to him that you could dive right into the limitless, wide-open sea. The Demon King declared that if they hated the system rules, they should just crush them. After all, they were the strongest team alive. He unleashed his aura, obliterating the barriers and rule structures, severing a limb, drinking poison, staying still for 24 hours, no more. Rely on luck, put your life on the line. Yet all of those absolute rules were completely shattered in a single blow. Lucian had never once imagined that such an impossible feat was even possible. Facing this utter despair, he had no hope and therefore chose not to resist. But then the Demon King charges forward, driven to seize his ultimate target. He sweeps ahead, utterly crushing everything in his path. Is this how the people of this era really live? They refuse to play by the rules, choosing to trust their own path, and as long as they hold on to hope, they never stop. Tian turned to Junior, telling him to keep following Mr. Bangfang while they headed out to the other entrances to rescue the remaining participants. Tian explained that these maze rules were far too complex. Nobody deserved to die. Suddenly, Lucian understood. He was not trapped by a beast, he was a prisoner to his own fears. Wait for me, Lucian calls out to the captain. I am coming with you. This sudden turn of events forces Lucian to reflect. If God had truly sent him here, why did he have to obey now? Why not just ignore the broadcasts and actively work to rewrite the terrible fate that waits for this world? Maybe there is still a chance to stop the disaster looming 20 years from now. Back then, he told the elder there was no hope, but now he finally sees it. Hope was right there. Lucian was ready to seize it with both hands and forge a new future for humanity. Now Lucian fully understood why his teammates cast aside their fears after meeting the Demon King. That man is easily the strongest and most brilliant being alive, and only he can inspire this kind of absolute faith in everyone around him. But then chaos, seeing that the artifact fragment is gone. Lucian demands to know who could have possibly beaten them to the prize. It makes no sense. The legendary Demon King was supposed to be completely unmatched. Yet they failed to get the fragment, leaving everyone's future entirely unpredictable. The Demon King realizes that another challenger simply finished the trial before them and quickly escaped, but Lucian points out that the timing is far too fast. No one should be able to clear this massive labyrinth in the blink of an eye. The Demon King suggests they double back and hunt down the mysterious intruder. They closely trace the exact route of the person who took the fragment, and remarkably, every single complex rule of the maze was followed perfectly. If someone actually pulled this off, they must be incredibly sharp and ruthless. A few moments later, the Demon King and Lucian find their comrades waiting near the exit, but standing right beside them, Lucian spots something truly horrific. Tian explains that the rules were successfully completed because someone had already claimed the artifact, meaning the entire system will soon shut down completely. They made it just in time. Most of the other hunters hesitated at the rule demanding they execute their own allies, choosing to flee instead of fight. But there was one terrifying exception, as the first team chose a much darker path. Lucian notes that when they finally reached the gateway, they discovered that someone had indeed cleared the challenge, but every other team member was left dead. Lucian realizes this mysterious killer was making cold, calculated moves from the very start. He slaughtered his allies, all just to claim the prize. Tenten was shocked to find that someone had already taken the fragment. She clenched her fists in absolute rage, declaring this thief to be truly horrible. Startled, the Demon King felt a deeply ominous premonition right then. Lucian realized the truth, the mystery thief behind all this, who took the artifact fragment and killed his comrades, is the one who will slay the Demon King in 2 months. Meanwhile, hidden tensions rise. The conflict between humans and demons escalates, meaning the Grand Clans must prepare. They need to divide up critical resources soon. 1,000 years ago, the strongest cultivators belonged to the Eastern Clan, but that power slowly faded. The West grew stronger, shifting the balance among the 7 great clans. Inside the home of the prestigious Yuang family, their ancient ancestor gathered 10 powerful artifact fragments 1,000 years ago to seal the chaotic demon tower, earning his family centuries of pure glory. A reputation the Yuang family proudly maintains to this very day. Meanwhile, the Lin and Li families rose by uniting Eastern and Western lineages. Both forces have grown incredibly strong lately, but following the recent deaths of Lin Feng and Ling Xiao, the Lin clan fell far behind. Now unbalanced, the 6 remaining clans are preparing to fight for total supremacy. This means the Yuang family must immediately speed up their own war preparations. One concerned elder wonders if contacting other families right now is too dangerous, especially since the demons are actively rebuilding their tower. Another elder quickly reminds him that great heroes always emerge during chaotic times. Thousands of years ago, an ancestor brought their clan supreme fame through heroic deeds. Now they need a hero more than ever, the Grand Elder adds. That since the Awakened Association is already taking care of the demon threat, they do not need to act just yet, for now they must focus on returning the Yuang family to the absolute peak of their former glory. But right during this meeting, a panicked guard bursts into the room, shouting that things are terrible because a mysterious man has suddenly breached their outer defenses and wiped out several security squads. This intruder, who is attacking the Yuang Manor, is a Taoist riding a winged horse. Strangely, any guard who gets close to him is completely paralyzed with fear. The Taoist scoffs at them, calling them weak. He mutters that a single 1,000 years was apparently enough for the Yuang family to completely fall. Suddenly, the guards notice something highly unusual about the Taoist blade. It houses an artifact fragment, meaning this man is that legendary hunter who cleared the endless labyrinth. The Taoist seems surprised by their words, muttering that awakened must be what they call cultivators these days. He flatly denies being an awakened, explaining that his true identity is none other than Yuang Wang. They can just call him ancestor. Hearing this, the head of the Yuang family freezes in pure shock.